Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Richard Lewis Show. I am, of course, Richard Lewis. You know me, you love me, you follow me for content like this because I'm about to interview a good friend, someone who's been out of the limelight for a little bit, but is slowly crawling back into it from under a rock, some might say.
Hands and knees, bleeding, bloody stumps behind me.
It is, of course, Jason Moses O'Toole, the legendary commentator, analyst, and former coach of Team Liquid, which no doubt is a topic that will make up a large part of the conversation. But for now, I'll just say welcome back to the broadcast life. You've been on my big screen TV doing your ESL bits and pieces. So it is good to have you back. I missed you. I said you should never went. You shouldn't have gone and done that crazy coaching thing.
No, it was a good experience. It was a good ride while it lasted. Short lived, but I don't know. Glad I did it. But yeah, happy to be back. It was it's fun coming back to all the old friends, see how things have evolved since I left.
Not very much.
No, not very much at all, actually. I'm still waiting for you to get back on the desk so I can have you up on my big screen.
Hey, I did one of the RMRs.
I saw that. You did the summit, didn't you, or something?
Yeah, I did the summit. Me and Hotbid, who've had a fractious relationship down the years, as I've had a fractious relationship with everyone in esports down the years, except you, really. All right,
we've had our moments, Richard. We've had our moments.
Yeah, it's just green room.
Never fully fractured, but
yeah, exactly. Just green room tensions. We all have those.
All still mates, as we say.
Exactly.
Over and over and over again.
I'm talking about real shit. Like me and Hotbit have had some real arguments. But anyway, we buried the hatchet a while ago, and he said, I'd love to get you in for a summit at some point. And then I think because I've retired effectively, he forgot to ask. He didn't think to. And I said, look, listen, mate, I would be down to do one. I'll work for cheap. I've got no self-esteem anymore. And he said,
it's
brilliant.
All been taken.
Yeah, he said, brilliant. That makes you the perfect broadcast talent. So
cheap rates, great. Get him. Here's the contract.
Yep. And I got to work with Fifth Lauren again. So it was
that's always fun.
Yeah, like just waiting for the weirdly inappropriate sentence that he manages to slip into every session. Like
it's always fun working with someone who just does not care if they ever get invited to be on camera talent ever again. Yeah, it's always a bit of a roller coaster.
It is. Been good at handling that with Orin for so long.
That's a good point.
Remember, I've done now over 200 episodes of a live podcast with him. So, I mean, like we are on Twitch with their rules, and somehow it hasn't gone bad. Obviously, touch all the wood. But yeah, so no, it is legitimately good to have you back. Although, I guess maybe you kind of wish you weren't here a little bit, right? Is that an accurate assessment?
No, I think my main problem with the work as a commentator and broadcast work for I don't know, probably X number 2-3 years, just feels I've mentioned this. It just feels like you're in like one of those little like hamster balls, like or hamster wheels, where you're just kind of running in place. I don't feel like when you're a freelance talent getting on a broadcast, you're kind of just executing somebody else's ideas and work. And it's a lot of fun and it's having a good time. But I don't know. I haven't gotten the sense of, I don't feel like I'm like pushing the industry or the game, Counter-Strike mostly. I don't, on some level, not even really the industry, just Counter-Strike forward in the way I'd like to. I don't feel like there's like having as much of an impact in this role as I would like to have. Especially after years of experience on broadcasts and working with ELeague and working with all the different tournament organizers. And I just, when I take these jobs now, I just look and I'm just like, man, there's like a million small things that we could change and do to make this better, make this easier on the people working it, making it a better show for the viewers at home, doing things better for teams and players that are featured in the broadcast. And that's most of my frustration, is just looking around and being like, we can be doing so much better. So no, I'm not like upset to be back, but I mean, my kind of goal at the moment is, especially, as this year kind of comes drawn to a close pretty quick, is to find some way where I can have a position next year where, I can push for some of those ideas, and I can actually feel like I'm having any kind of an impact. Like, I don't know if it ever changed for you, but I know like back in like 2016, 2017, like when we'd get done with like the MLG major, or when we got done with like the first DreamHack Masters, there was always like there were events in 2016 and 2017 where I got done and felt like a really big sense of pride that like we executed this like this great show, like MLG, phenomenal show, exciting, super fun to watch, felt pride. DreamHack Masters, the first one we did in Malmo, I felt great sense of pride that we were able to kind of take that first Masters and their vision and put up a good show with it, and what I thought was an amazing show. And I haven't had that feeling of pride on a project and a broadcast in quite some time,
Yeah.
um
I think it's kind of hard to at the moment, right? Because nobody's able to do their best work.
yeah
And a lot has kind of happened to lead us to that. And eventually, unfortunately, the way the game's going, you have to ask yourself, is it economically viable to do our best work? I mean, like, let's say, give ELeague, I'm biased, obviously, but give ELeague,
yeah
the call that the yardstick. I mean, they're not around anymore, not in CS, and that's certainly wouldn't be the case now. I mean, those shows, the quality was there because the money was there. It's like, and unfortunately, where we're at the
yeah
moment, it makes sense to kind of cut corners and not give it its best. I mean, the stuff in NA, just the game being in decline in general. We don't know if we're going to bounce back after the pandemic. You got all the now travel restrictions that mean if you do want somebody in the studio, there's a good chance to get after quarantine for about a week. So you're paying for that fucking hotel room. There's a lot of extra costs that have come out that I think are kind of making everyone hold back and basically just muddle through rather than do work they would want to, have held up in a few years' time.
Certainly. And yeah, that's definitely true for this COVID time. I had that feeling a little bit before COVID, where I felt like we weren't really pushing the envelope and weren't really innovating on broadcasts. But I don't know. I think if that's like I think that's a good assessment of it, and that's certainly a good angle of it. But for me, like when COVID hit, it was like, yeah, we probably can't run events the same way. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be like weird. Maybe it's not fully worth it. But also, like, there was like an opportunity there when everyone's in COVID and you have all the talent at home and all the people on broadcast at home. Like, why aren't we cranking out content? Like, why aren't we, like, that was where I was just kind of like, yeah, we're all kind of separated and stuck at home. And I know the guys doing the EPL broadcast were stuck in Cologne for like 3-4 months during a lot of this because they weren't allowed to travel back and forth. I know the Blast guys were stuck in Copenhagen for extended periods of time. And it's like, where's the, like, with everyone there, like, why aren't we like recording content? Why aren't we making features? Why aren't we making documentaries? Why aren't we doing something for like about players? Especially considering what this past 2 years throughout COVID, we've had some like huge legends of the game like step down and retire and step back. And it's like, why aren't we making content around those guys? Why aren't we like starting to build the legend? I don't know. Maybe it's, I always have this feeling, and then maybe it's because I've always been a little bit of like a history nerd. For me, what always got me into like football and basketball teams, like, when I was growing up, the Pistons in the early 2000s were obviously dominant, for a number of years. And I really enjoyed watching them because I'm from Michigan and they're obviously my team. But I think what made me really fall in love with them was looking into the history and learning about the bad boys and learning about, the history of them having Rodman and Isaiah. And, like that tie to like a historic sports, or like a era in a sports franchise, or legendary players, is what like got me like really interested in following the franchise and the sport and everything like that. And I feel like Counter-Strike is one of those few esports that's lucky enough to have a history that goes back way further. And I don't know if this would actually have a huge impact, but we're not trying it. Like, let's start building these legends that might hook people in. Let's start building these stories around these players that, maybe they just fall in love with some like 30-minute documentary on Kenny S or something like that, and then they tune into a game and they learn to fall in love with the game. I don't know if it would work, but like I just feel there's so many opportunities, and in an industry where content is king, it's weird to me that none of our TOs are like focused on the content side of things. Like everyone's focused on the monopoly of the schedule, everyone's focused on having as many events and taking up space in the calendar. Why aren't we like trying to monopolize the content side of things? Like, why has no company said we want like 80% of the Counter-Strike content you see is going to be ESL content, like on our YouTube channel? Like, why is no one trying to monopolize what seems to be a huge value in the gaming industry, especially considering, as you said, during COVID and cost rising and risk reward and the scene in a weird place, like streamers and 15-year-old kids around the world have figured out ways to make cheap content every single day, and like we can't find ways to do that. Those are the kind of things that kind of bug me and frustrate me when I'm working at events. The broadcast itself, I have a lot of fun. Obviously, love working with the guys and everything, and being back with them and getting to reunite with them. First time I saw Yanko in like 500 and some days is here like these past weeks, so that's been great. But I just, I find myself now just being like seeing missed opportunities kind of everywhere I look.
Yeah, I agree. I think the content side of thing is always something that's mystified me as well. Because I remember when we went to ELeague and I had talks with network executives, and I was like, look, what are the type of content are we going to do other than the show? And they're like, well, if the show's successful, one of the things we'd like to do is essentially get some esports documentaries going, big ones, think 30 for 30 style. So I was like, okay, cool. So I went away and scripted 5, right?
Yeah, I remember this. I remember seeing a bunch of your scripts from back then.
Yeah, because I'm a fucking idiot.
Psycho.
Yeah. And so I came in and I was like, yo, these are the treatments. And what we really need to do is get ahead of this and have a film crew going to events, because that's where everyone gathers. And if you want to save money, you go into a room, you put up some fucking fairy lights, throw that fucking, dime store fucking curtain up, the black curtain, and you just, get a soft focus
crank out
lens.
5 interviews.
Yeah, exactly. And you crank out 5 interviews, and now you got your talking heads for your documentaries. You can ask them if you know what 5 documentaries you want to film, and they feature in all 5 of them. Fuck it, ask them the questions for all 5, and then you've got that on a hard drive somewhere ready for the edit once we can start putting it all together. And they were like, yeah, totally. Let's start looking at some of this. And, they seem to be more preoccupied with content that to me didn't have a lot of value, even if it was fun. I think, for example, it was like a fucking entire day's shoot to take that phase team to the go-karts.
Yeah.
And you're like... that's good. It's great seeing fucking Olaf and fucking whoever, and Carrigan or whoever the fuck it was then, fucking try and ram each other off the road and argue about who's the best driver. That's cool and all, but if we really want to hook people in and capture their imaginations, we need to start telling. I mean, even just the surface level stories would be a start, right? Olaf's story is so fucking typical. It wouldn't astound anyone who's worked in esports for a while, really good at sports, gets an injury,
blew out his knee or something.
Yeah, exactly. Gets sad, starts playing video games, gets good at video games. The video games become his channel for his aggression and his competitive nature. Suddenly he's one of the best players in the world. It's a tale as old as time. But I'm sure people would find it interesting, the normies. But we didn't really do anything with all of this stuff. And yeah, I agree. I think the biggest regret, I think when CS does go down the tubes, we're all going to have is that we didn't tell the stories that should have been told at the time. People would have been the most interested to hear them.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's only so long we can go down this road of even though COVID is still prevalent and all those issues that go along with it are still around, I think there's only so much longer that we can go down this road of just doing the basics and playing for the bottom line. Eventually someone's going to have to take a risk. And I think the hard part too is you know, all these mainstream companies that we expect to come in esports, they're all like hitting like the traditional streamer and influencers already. Like they're eventually going to find their way and kind of experiment with esports. And we're not going to be ready for it. You know, if we don't have like the high quality segments ready to go, if we don't have like high quality content ideas, we're not used to drilling them, and there's still graphical errors when we're pulling them up, and there's still, you know, random audio cues. Like eventually these companies that are going to come in are be like, why am I putting my name on this when it has all these errors constantly? And I don't know. I just feel like, you know, it's time now where we start like stepping up and actually trying to I don't know. It feels like the product that we have in esports or in Counter-Strike esports is the sheer volume of Counter-Strike. That's like what we're trying to sell to people is how much Counter-Strike there is, instead of trying to make the product the quality of the Counter-Strike and the quality of the broadcast that kind of that frames it for the viewers. So I just, yeah, I just feel like we're not prepared for when the next step eventually comes. And it's obviously kind of a weird time, as not only COVID, but apparently we, you know, this scene is just fucking racked with cheaters. So that's the other thing where I'm just like, holy hell. I was talking to Trace tonight, to Sana, and I was just like, dude, this is weird. Like you know, I'm not so naive to think that there wouldn't be like cheaters and scumbags and people trying to like push the envelope and bend the rules. But I am at the same time very shocked by how many people are willing to just like flat out cheat. And that's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. And I don't understand it. I was even saying, just like, obviously the big one right now is Hunden, and it's like, man, he's been around just as long, like for just as long as I
He's
probably
30
have.
years
20
fucking
years.
old, dude. He's an old man in
Yeah,
esports terms.
but like I was trying to imagine myself into a situation where, like, okay, like you've had like a little bit of a playing career, nothing crazy. You've obviously made a, you know, a big name for yourself in commentary and being kind of a public figure and having, you know, public respect and reputation. Like, I'm just trying to imagine like what it would take for me to put all of that on the line. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like what a weird, like a embarrassing thing to have like an entire career, entire lifetimes of work just kind of thrown down the tube.
Well, obviously,
For
you would never do it, not because you're an honest person, but because you'd be terrified of like me and Duncan and the reckoning
yeah,
you would get.
that too, because you
Yeah.
guys wouldn't hold back on me.
Oh
I'd be like,
no,
nope.
fuck no, fuck no. Oh, you get away worse than anyone else. Because like,
Yeah, it's not that I'm a good person or honest. I just don't want to get fucking wrecked by Duncan.
yeah, but no, I mean, like, look, the whole cheating thing. I knew it was going to ramp up in the online era, but
Yeah,
you know, you said put it all on the line. Here's the sad reality: our standards have slipped so much. The fan base, the tournament organizers, sponsors, you know, everybody. You know, those coaches haven't put anything on the line, really. You know, like the worst offender was that guy Zona. You know, he's like essentially
yeah,
permanently banned from the majors. He probably was never going to be involved in one, and he's got a 5-year ban. And it's like, you know, meanwhile, the people at the big orgs, they just got to go and be an analyst for a bit and then come back, and everyone was totally fine with that as a
yeah.
strategy, because you know, and people's focus were on, yeah, who really are those ESIC guys though? You know, I've been astounded at kind of like how a community that, you know, goes, you know, I think about what happened with Leaf.
Matt with okay, yeah.
Who are you gonna say?
I was gonna say like the old school I by power match fixing.
Right.
It's weird seeing people that probably were the same people that said those guys should be banned forever and should never come back, and then try and rationalize some of the cheating that we've had now and make it out like it's not some kind of a big deal or the immoral behavior. And I
Yeah.
don't know. It's odd.
But
It's
I
odd
mean,
to watch.
I feel like one of the things that's happened is like our older fans have, you know, because fuck me, dude, I've never felt more my age. Like everyone's pregnant or getting married or having
Yeah.
kids. You know, like curse you, Frankie, for making me feel old. She announced the pregnancy and got like married like
Married a week
7 days
later,
later. I was like, what the fuck? Like, give me time to process that you know, I'm old
I
and
know.
wasted my life. Like, please, can everyone stop doing stuff? But
Yeah,
yeah,
stop
that's
advancing your lives, you ass selfish pricks.
yeah, it's unbelievable. So obviously everyone's doing that, right? You know, we had it with Fifth as well, and fucking Smix,
Yeah.
and you know, it's just non-stop. You know, Anders keeps spitting out kids all the time as well. And yeah,
Surely
like,
he's done now.
Well, you know, mate, I think the reason he's been losing all these weight is he just wants to become a breeding machine. I think that's like, I think that's his plan moving forward. Like, you know, if he has an army of children to do his bidding, then the crazy Anders we know might get some.
We don't need the Anders gene to fucking spread throughout this world.
Or maybe we do. I don't know. Like it's one of the two, isn't it? It's either we need as much of it or just none of it. You know, make a decision. But anyway, you know, the I think everyone in the scene collectively who's been around Counter-Strike a long time has got old. And obviously, if that applies to us, that applies to the fans. And I've seen a lot of fans come in and ask questions that, you know, I've even made fun of some of them on By the Numbers. You know, I'm saying, like, you know, I saw one where, like, somebody did a really terrible Reddit post where it was like, if Na'Vi had beaten Gambit the last 3 times they played them, they'd be on a 15 series unbeaten streak. Like, yeah, brilliant, great. But and then somebody came in and said, wow, what's the longest streak? That must be close. And of course, these people had no idea about the Ninjas in Pajamas 87-0, you know, and that and other things I've seen on Reddit, which, you know, I use Reddit and HLTV as the barometer of, like, how there's, like, new people, younger fans. I mean, put it this way, there are people on HLTV forums that defend me. That could never have happened 5 years ago. That was one of the biggest sources of death threats I ever got from a fan base. They all think I killed 1.6 somehow. I don't know, but you know. Well, you know, yeah. I mean, look, it was already on its last legs. I just put the pillow over the face. It's like, yeah,
just pulled that plug.
Yeah. So, but anyway, you know, so yeah, we've got all these young fans coming in, and I think, unfortunately, they only care about the game. They're invested in the game. They're invested in the players they care about. They're invested in the orgs they care about. And integrity is not really a big issue to them because, let's be honest, it's really not when you're young. You just care about what you care about, and everything else can go to shit. I mean, young people are selfish by design. You probably have to be for an anthropological reason. You know, you probably have to be selfish to survive. So, you know, what I see is I see a lot of kids that, like you say, that really, you know, the people who, you know, back when iBuyPower got banned, it was good. People were championing lifetime bans. People were saying they should have gone to jail. Now, you know, you get a relatively well-known coach or player get caught doing something, and there's a procession of people defending it, or people even saying, well, who gives a fuck? And I think this has all contributed to the sorry state we're in right now as a competitive scene, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just like it's the worst timing for all of it to come crashing down. Well, I guess there's never really a good timing. But yeah, it's been a pretty brutal year and a half for Counter-Strike, which is a scary prospect. I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping when we get back to Lance, I'd just like to see a positive headline come out of Counter-Strike once. That'd be cool.
It'd be nice.
It'd be very nice. That's what I'm waiting for every day when I check Twitter.
It's just, I mean, I can't imagine what it would be.
Yeah, I don't know what it would be either. Maybe, I mean, I think we're all kind of, I guess the next big positive news that we could possibly get is, you know, the final confirmation that the major is actually on, that we're moving forward with it.
Yeah, so much hangs, you know, in the balance for the major, and I know PGL are aware of this. Do you think it's essential that the major has, like, good viewership and everything goes right and it gets a big pop? You know, that's my feel on it, that if the major sucks, I think we can just start putting things in boxes and just start packing up, you know.
I don't think it's that bad. I'm not super worried about, like, the viewership. I hope that we have a major that doesn't have any like massive issues, you know, like I hope there's no, like, you know, DDoS of the internet or network goes down or something weird happening, or, you know, team can't get there due to COVID. I hope all that stuff is fixed. And you know, that's probably the one area I've been pretty light on Valve over the past few years, because But this is one area where I think they really need to kind of step up, and I hope they're playing a pretty big role in ensuring that this major can happen. Like, we exist pretty well without them, and do fine without them. But, in a world of COVID, and when you're watching, Riot ensure that a Valorant event can happen in Iceland in the middle of COVID, when you're watching all these other developers and TOs like find ways to bring deals to their game. It would be nice if Valve was like that hands-on and making sure that this can move forward. And I don't know that they are. I don't have those details, but this COVID era has been like the one area where in the back of my head I've been like, man, I like, for the first time in a long time, I've really kind of like mentally been just praying for some Valve intervention to give us the assist, like just like a leg up to help us through this time.
Yeah, I think, and you know this as well as I do. I just think, unfortunately, that's never going to be a priority. In fact,
Probably.
I think Dota gets a lot of attention because a lot of the people that work at Valve obviously like playing Dota, and it's
Yeah, I love Dota.
game. But then you've got a smattering of people who work on their other titles. I mean, they were even up until not too recently ago, they were even dedicating resources to try to fucking save artifacts. If so, yeah. Well,
wasn't that just didn't that just turn into like porn streaming? The artifact like Twitch or something?
Way
like
worse. If it was only porn, it would have been better. Unfortunately, videos of like massacres and
smut. Yeah.
Yeah, and they would have like
snuff films.
Yeah, and Hitler speeches. Just ridiculous. But yeah, Artifact, they were trying to save that. And then, you see something like the Steam Deck get announced, and you really have to understand what Valve are interested in, and it's more the tech side of things now. Which is fine. I got no problem with that as a business. But unfortunately, it means that we are going to have to do for self like we have been doing for the longest time. And I'm of the mindset that doing for self isn't going to pull us out of this funk, because we got fucking Valorant breathing on us, and Riot are going to throw everything at that game to be the CS killer. That's what Riot do. When they create a clone of a game, they do it with the intent to kill the original off.
Yeah, that's super dangerous. It'll be interesting to see how much Europe withstands like the allure of Valorant over time. I don't know. I think the NA scene is, I'm relatively disconnected. Actually, I shouldn't even say relatively. I'm very disconnected from like the actual semi-pro and like the Counter-Strike structure in North America. But from what I can hear, what I was involved with when I was with Liquid, and what I've heard from players and people who are closer to it, I think the NA scene is not heading. They're pretty much there already. I think this is going to be a much harder hole to dig out of than it was when CGS died. When CGS went down, it probably took us like 7 years to get Counter-Strike in North America back alive and kicking, and it probably took like 10 years before we had a team that could even reasonably be considered to be able to compete with European teams. I think it's going to be even harder with the way that European teams are now structuring themselves and their teams to be set up with a framework of management around the actual sporting team. Now the Academy League that's popping up, so they're going to still have a healthy and vibrant tier 2 scene that's going to continually feed. And North America, I think in so many different aspects and regards, is going to be left in the dirt. And I can't stop playing out. I don't know. I don't think this is close to happening, but like, I'm just trying to think in my head, like imagine a world in where EG or Liquid implode, like by the end. Let's just say one of those two teams like drops out by the end of the year. Like one of those teams like just decides to stop playing. I don't know if those orgs stay in Counter-Strike.
EG have got to throw in the towel. I think literally when I finish doing this, I have to record a video for Deserto as well, because I'm just the king of content, and it's gonna be empire. Just fucking stop. EG, please stop. It's too much.
Well, Liquid, when I was there, was extremely dedicated to Counter-Strike, which I always appreciated. So I hope they would stay in, but I don't, again, it would depend on a lot of different things. But from what I've kind of heard is, the major sticker money at the very least is an incentive enough for some organization to have some level of investment in Counter-Strike from North America, especially if North America continues to retain like 2 permanent slots for North American teams. If your goal is just to be top 2 in North America, that's obviously attainable. And there's some profit in there for orgs. So maybe, but I mean, would you want that kind of an existence in your scene? Would you want that? So yeah, I mean, all this to say the focus has gone to Liquid and EG, but just more in general, I think the North American scene is just at a darker apocalypse than CGS, which was pretty rough situation to climb out of for the region.
Yeah, that was crazy, and this definitely feels worse because
yeah,
the only thing that separated you back in the CGS days was were you willing to go from having an at the time exorbitant salary to playing for free? If you were, all the orgs were there, all the leagues were there, all the prize money was there. You still had opportunities to ply your trade. It was just a lot of people were like, I've had a taste of the good life. I don't want to go back to what I grinded 6, 7, 8 years to get into the CGS in the first place. It was really demotivating for a lot of them. This time there isn't even an org to play in. If you're not good enough, if you're not good enough to be in Team Liquid, then you're pretty much gonna have to play Valorant.
Yeah, certainly. And yeah, makes complete sense. I mean, you have to have a real extreme love for Counter-Strike, which is, I guess, the one compelling aspect of that Bad News Bears team is like, regardless of their results or how good you think they are or not, the fact that they're still trying to grind it out and make it happen is I don't know. I applaud it. I appreciate it in that regard.
If you've got players retiring to go and be professional poker players, that should tell you all you need to know. I mean, that's not, that's very hit or miss as a career. And yeah, I have no doubt PTR is going to make more money at that and be happier and probably less stressed doing that than what he would be doing trying to eke out an existence in North American Counter-Strike. It's unbelievably bleak and everybody knows it. The orgs know it. The leagues know it. So yeah.
Well, I mean, the other side of this too is, I mean, on some level, I feel like the North American scene has pretty much got completely abandoned by pretty much every major player in Counter-Strike. On some level, I do put that kind of a blame out there, and I think COVID was, I don't know, I hesitate to provide too much harsh judgment on them because it all happened during COVID, and I'm not in their shoes and I don't see the numbers that they see or the decisions that they have to make. I don't know what plops on their desk, but I know ESEA is doing everything they can. I know they've added those kind of cash cups, which is something I know that a couple of us advocated for when we had some calls to try and repair things. But I mean, it's just not enough, especially with no events being there, which again makes sense to a degree. But just not even the opportunities anymore. Like everything just pulled out, which is, I don't know, which is just weird. So felt to me like that was a kind of a shocking abandonment of all these companies that had put resources there in the past. And I don't know, I guess in some level too, though, like there's still ESEA League. There's still the league to play, and that gives you the route to get into Pro League, although North American Pro League doesn't mean much these days. But yeah, it's just, I don't
sure, if you want to grind your way through a fucking league that's rife with match fixing, sure.
Yeah, there's that too. Well, I mean, as long as you're not match fixing, in theory, that you'd be the one winning the matches, right?
Well, in theory, but then a lot of these matches incredibly, if you think the coach bug abuse was bad, what you do is you get one guy on the team that rats out all the other players, streams his screen via Discord to the team he's in cahoots with.
Oh, don't tell me these things, Richard.
And they can bet on themselves to win.
It's so fucked.
Yeah,
I don't know, dude. It's like there's on some level where I'm just like, I've been involved in Counter-Strike, and my primary job has been Counter-Strike for the past 8 years, and before that I played for fucking 10 years. Like, is this all really going to come down because there's a bunch of fucking dickhead 15-year-olds throwing matches?
Yeah,
I guess the answer is yes. Great.
Yes. I mean, look, it won't just be the match fixing, and it won't just be
I know.
And it won't just be the collapse of NA, and it won't just be everyone having to suck the Chinese companies' dicks because that's where the money is, or it won't just be everyone having to get in bed with shady sponsors to survive. It's a combination of all of these things happening all at once. And on top of that, I agree as well with where I think you were going to go, but very wisely pulled out. I think there were some people as well that, real talk, they saw COVID as an opportunity to have a credible excuse to get the fuck out of a game that wasn't really doing it for them anymore. And I think that definitely happened as well on a few occasions.
Yeah, that's been rough. I mean, I was talking more of TOs, but certainly like team orgs. I know there's like a lot of team orgs that came in for their flash in the pan Counter-Strike experience and fucking raised salaries by like $15,000 a month. And then a year later, we're like, oh, this is actually too expensive, even though I'm the one who set the standard for salaries.
Yeah.
It's
unbelievable, isn't it?
Can you? That was so frustrating. It was so frustrating to watch those orgs.
So look, you've done the small talk. You've had your foreplay, Moses. I hope you enjoyed it. Now it's time for the long dick of the law. I'm going to get back to my structured interview. One thing I will ask you that I did have when you were talking about content creation, it's kind of a repurposed question I was going to get into. Why wasn't it Room on Fire then that stepped up to the plate and made all this amazing content? Because you made one documentary about Boostgate. Everybody loved it. You even had sponsors, if I remember rightly, for it.
No,
you didn't. All right, I'm full of shit. Richard Lewis, wrong again.
As always.
Sorry, I'll edit it out in post. You did it all by yourself, self-funded, and it just stopped. You didn't do any more. So in many ways, you let the community down, didn't you, Jason?
Yeah, I guess in some ways. I mean, I let myself down in the sense that I really wanted to do it, and I've had various points throughout the years since then. I think I have like 2 or 3 episodes actually like outlined and relatively scripted, like ready to go. The first one I paid for everything out of pocket. That cost me like $7 to $8 grand to make that. And obviously after the fact, I found out, like, obviously going through it and doing it, I was like, wow, I could have done this differently and saved myself, $3 grand here or there, perhaps. But I mean, that was always supposed to be like a test run to then sell it to sponsors, or sell it to TOs, or, sell it as an idea, as a product. And I know I've even started working on some of them with different production companies, and it just, for whatever reason, it's kind of fizzled out and panned out. I think the main reason was we prioritize, let me not say I prioritize like the freelance circuit probably way too much over the years. I mean, I did pretty much every event for 5 years, like, nonstop. I did every single event that crossed my path. And, when you're doing that and you're flying around the world and you're constantly jet lagged or constantly, hungover, or just living a really healthy lifestyle and a really unhealthy lifestyle. And it was hard to prioritize something that would cost me money without the kind of the hope of it making money. I think that's one aspect of it. I think one big error that we made in Room on Fire when it began was we had enough money to hire like one full-time person. And at the time, the conversation and the option was, do you want to hire a full-time like video editor who can like come up with ideas and film content and edit it and take care of the YouTube and take care of social and everything like that? Or do you want to hire like a business person to come in and you guys will make the content and you'll maybe just pay a freelancer to edit and stuff like that? And then you actually have the guy who can go out and sell it and find sponsors and things like that. And we went with the video editor, which I think in hindsight, if I could go back, I'd do it the other way. But I think at the time, the logic was, since we're at so many of these events, when you're at after parties or when you're done with the day and you're eating in like the Twitch lounge or something during an event, you're running into representatives of Monster and you're running into representatives of various companies that are there, and various people. And I think we thought that our ability to network and ability to kind of do that ourselves would be able to kind of carry us at least through the early stages. And that was obviously incorrect. Again, I think it's because on some level, our priorities weren't exactly on growing the Room on Fire brand. I think a third issue that we had with Room on Fire is I don't think we kind of tossed around like a bunch of different ideas of what exactly Room on Fire should be and like what its goal was. I know like part of the purpose when we began um, was to have all the commentators in it, not just like me and Anders and Semler and Yanko who came in. You know, we wanted Matt and Henry as well. We wanted Alex. We wanted it to be not a union but like some kind of like an organization of commentators that could be like this is you know the group that can help kind of make sure that nobody's getting screwed, that we can improve various situations in casting lifestyle in terms of hotel accommodations, in terms of, you know, maybe we get premium economy if our travel time's over, you know, like 17 hours or something like that. Like if you're doing international flights, you should have the option for premium economy. And we weren't, I don't think we were ever able to kind of get everyone united in that idea. And then it kind of morphed into a content house, and we stuck with that for a little bit. But even that, again, when you're doing, you know, 300 days of travel out of the year, it's hard to like be making enough content to battle that algorithm that you need to really kind of blow up the channel and blow up on socials. So I think it was a lot of different things, and I think it just ended up being just kind of fizzling out on its own right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I always thought that, you know, there's something like that that can definitely work. I thought about doing it myself with like the No Majors Club.
Yeah,
Obviously, Room on Fire was all the cool guys and the top tier talent, right? And the No
yeah,
Majors
the
Club,
A-listers.
yeah, we're basically like the freaks and the rejects that I suppose would realistically have to undercut you guys to get the gigs, but that's fine. We're willing to do that. And, you know, I make a collective, and what we do is we will do an alternative broadcast for your tournament that'll be fun and a bit wacky, and
Yeah, a bit out there.
yeah, and we'll create our own content segments for you and everything, and you know, you just pay a flat fee essentially to hire us, and I'll divide the money, you know, between all the people that need it, and we just do it like that. So, I mean, you know, I always wanted Room on Fire to go in that direction, but I obviously know why it couldn't. I mean,
Yeah,
unfortunately, we've talked about this a lot down the years, both on camera and off camera. Talent and egos, man. I mean, what you gonna do? Like, you can't be good at you can't be good at the job without an ego. And unfortunately, often it's the ego that stops you being better at the job or having better relationships or, you know, creating more
yeah.
enjoyment for people around you. Unfortunately, there was a lot of people that didn't want to get on board because somebody would have had to control it. And if it wasn't them, they had a problem with that. And
Yeah, there were some of those issues certainly, which didn't really bother me. I kind of expected there to be concerns about that. The problem was that we couldn't find a solution that everyone could agree on. You know, and I mean it went. You know, obviously, you know, at the time it was controlled by mostly Anders and Semler by virtue of them putting in like an initial investment from some of the Room on Fire skins they had early on, and they just had a bunch of extra cash to give to that project. Um, and you know, I came on eventually a little bit later and took a little bit of control. But I mean, yeah, getting some of the other guys involved was a little bit touch and go. We offered a lot of like controlling interests and controlling ability and ability to have like a big voice in decisions that were made. And just every time we kind of gave a little bit, we felt like some of the other guys that we were trying to get involved just kept wanting more or would ask for something, and then like it didn't seem to satisfy them enough. And so yeah, in that regard, we couldn't ever get anyone under one single umbrella. But I mean, there's, you know, there were valid concerns from those guys at the time too, not just in terms of who was controlling it, but in terms of overall strategy to get our goals. I think, you know, at the time especially, there was a lot of concern about, you know, the angle we would take to like try and improve things, like how militant it would, like how aggressive it would be of a message to send to like TOs, you know. um, and you know, yeah, you're obviously gonna have some disagreements on strategy as well. But I mean, we never even really got to the point where we could explore, you know, those different ideas. And I just know that was like just a concern at the time.
yeah, yeah, it's a shame, man. I think it was one of those things that had like a ton of potential, and I still think that model can work, provided you can get the right talent to all want to pull in the same direction. And you know, it's still something I think about doing, honestly.
It might be possible now. I mean,
Mm.
you can look at it too, because like, Henry and Matt went off and did their own drop the bomb thing that eventually started getting Chad more involved in as well.
Yep.
And equally that project I think suffered from the same thing. They actually made some phenomenal um content with Tom Newman, who made some really good like documentary pieces, which probably didn't get all the traction that they deserved at the time. They were much more closely aligned with ESL at the time, so they got to use their studio for like their podcasts and to show off their features and make it feel like a real event. But again, like even that didn't work because I mean, one, the amount of money they had to spend to make like the 5 documentary features they did, and also not being able to sell those and get return on that money just
Yeah.
made it something that was like not motivated to continue to fund as an individual. And also like just like us, their priority was focused on grinding the circuit, was
Mm.
focused on doing pretty much every event for those years. um so I mean, that was only going to go on for so long before that was going to fizzle out as well, and obviously it naturally did.
Yeah, it really is a shame because there was so much potential there, but it was like you say, it was either being done by people that were really committed to the freelance circuit and were sort of ubiquitous at every
Yeah.
tournament, or like you say, people's fucking egos got in the way of making potentially something that could have achieved a lot more than probably what we all actually did.
And I'll be honest too, like I don't think that lifestyle, I don't think that kind of a, maybe it would have worked if we could have gotten everyone to the point where it was like, all right, everyone just has to make like 1 video a week, and that's how we're going to get like our daily YouTube upload. But at the same time, I think much like the players, I think we, especially being older, I know for me personally, I won't speak for the other guys, I really have no interest whatsoever in streamer content and having like my own personal YouTube channel. I don't really have any interest in vlogging. Like that stuff doesn't ever sound fun to me. And I feel like if you're going to go down that road, like you better love some of those things. And I love making content, but I want to make content, around the league. I want to make content around the game. I don't want to have to upload some stupid reaction video to this scenario or some Bush League vlog just because I need to upload a video to fight the algorithm. Like I
Yeah.
want to create, the content that's going to build a story for an event and help tell a story of a team throughout an event, or give context to where this team is at heading into an event. Things around like the actual Counter-Strike esport. I actually don't care whatsoever for like traditional gaming content. I think most of the gaming, I click on like I click on like YouTube videos from like some of the big streamers and some of the big influencers, and I'll watch some of their vlogs, and I just don't get it. Like I just don't enjoy that kind of content. I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't really identify with like the larger gaming culture that seems to be prevalent at the moment. Maybe that's just the fucking old guy in me talking.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I kind of feel the same way. The problem you've got, unfortunately, is our audience is young,
I know.
and a lot of the industry trends all circulate around that. You can't go away for 3 months to work on a project. You may as well be fucking dead.
Yeah.
But the people's attention spans, especially the Zoomers that are just brought up with like they're given a screen when they're like 2 fucking years old just to calm them the fuck down for 5 minutes. Like,
Yeah, the screen ADHD that builds up is just ingrained in the DNA.
exactly. And they end up not they want, and plus as well this drama cycle. So it's this constant, if I'm not putting something out there, I'm not relevant. And you'll see this a lot. Saw a
Yeah.
thread about me and Thorin the other day. Where have these two guys been? I guess they're irrelevant now. Guess they've retired. It's like I'm doing a weekly podcast still. I do
Talk show with Duncan, yeah.
I do regular videos at Deserto. I'm still I just published an article about the match fixing, which I've spent months and months investigating, hopefully moving towards a big article that might even be the length of a book, depending on what we can and can't publish as this investigation goes on. And it's like, how much more do I need to do? And what you realize is you have to be on every stream, commentating every game or hosting every event, producing a YouTube video on the side, have a syndicated column. You know, it's like, you know, be tweeting fucking stupid, inane fucking tweets every 3 hours. Hey gamers, let's go get this bread. Are you not fucking bored of bread yet, mate? You're getting this bread every day, you fucking cunt. And you know, like, get this
too many
bread.
carbs, man.
Yeah, or asking inane questions like, you know, can you have pineapple on pizza or not? And then like 500 engagement comments.
Yeah, those are the really tilting ones, because I know what they're doing and they're playing the game and it's fine. Like, I get it. But at the same time, I'm just like, do we really want to live in a world where we just tweet stupid shit just because it's going to bring in engagement? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Like it's important to, I guess that yeah. Again, you
just have to go away.
I get it. I just don't.
You know?
I don't enjoy it myself. I'd rather just, you know, if it takes me going behind the scenes and being a little bit away from public eye and doing my work, you know, behind for a tournament organizer, helping to organize and create content and build things for the show and the broadcast and in between the various events. You know, I'd rather do that than have my own grinded out stream and YouTube situation.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, though, there's a lot of truth in just do what the fuck you want to do. It's like, you're not gonna be hurting for money, right? Like, I'm not gonna get a call from you. It's, you know,
I don't know. I guess we'll find out, Richard. You know, I could say yes now, but maybe 4 months down the road.
Hey, it's all right. Don't worry. Joe Biden's gonna defy the Supreme Court, so you don't have to pay your fucking rent. You're fine. You're fine.
Perfect. I'm not renting anymore. God
yeah, that didn't count. He didn't do that, actually. Yeah, people who pay mortgages. Nah.
Yeah, we still got to pay.
Yeah, you're fucked. Unlucky homeowners. But yeah, you know, like I just think, you know, what I've always done is I've always essentially done what I wanted to do, and eventually it's clicked, and there's been an audience there for it. And I think if you make good content, like you say, content's king. I think, you know, it'll find its home eventually. It might take a while, might not be profitable at the start, but you know what is. So,
but yeah, I mean, going back to the opening of that, I do have plans. Right before I went off to coach Liquid, I'd actually just started making another episode of Greatest Games with a company, and it obviously got thrown on the back burner. Because that was no longer my priority, but I haven't even looked into restarting that again. But I would like to start making those again. I think there's so much. I mean, obviously, if you go back in the history of Counter-Strike, so many incredible series, so many incredible games, and like you said, there's a good chunk of the fan base now who won't remember them, or will have just never seen them, or won't even have realized it. And I think those are really cool things that we can go revisit and turn it in. I mean, that first one got, like, you know, decent viewership on YouTube, but I think we had like 80,000 people in the live Twitch stream of it when we premiered it, which was crazy. At the time. What was that? That was right before the ELeague Major, the first one. So that was like beginning of 2017, I think.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wild.
Yo, I mean, like, you know, that's a great return, and like you say, it's like there has to be somebody that wants to, you know, sponsor that, and eventually, I think you can create a sort of self-sustaining one. I put it this way: I make very bare bones content. You know, my production value is barely upped. You know, I've had a Twitch account probably since like 2012, I think, and been making YouTube videos perhaps like not much longer after that. My production value's hardly scaled up at all, you know. But whatever, you know, I think people come to listen to what I've got to say. And as long as people give a fuck about that, I'll be all right. It's just a matter of just doing it and just putting it out there. And if I can find sponsors that want to throw thousands of pounds at me for that garbage, garbage, then I think people who make like really good documentaries are going to be fine.
I would hope so. I haven't actually obviously I haven't been able to actually complete one to go down that road of actively trying to sell it. I know I've tried to sell the idea to different companies to try and help them before I actually make it. And that hasn't always gone well. That obviously hasn't been super successful. So, you know, it is what it is, but maybe that's something that down the road I'm able to get up and running and I'm able to get going. I would love to do that kind of content. I'm fascinated by that idea.
with all of that said, because I know we'll have to get into it now, because when I tweet this out, I'll put it on YouTube, we're gonna have to do all the capitals like Moses
clickbait,
hated his time in liquids, question mark. You do it like that. But anyway, so look, I mean, it seems to me that you were essentially, whether you want to call it bored, whether you want to call it jaded, whether you want to call it frustrated, whatever word you want to select. But it seemed to me that you wanted a change more than anything. And so I guess the first question is that why you kind of retreated into doing coaching? Because I think you can be a good coach. But it certainly came a little bit out of left field, especially given we'd all seen what had happened to Yanko by the time you decided to go. And now, and I said to Yanko then, like, don't do this, bro. This is not the play. So was it this like frustration that, you wanted to go do something else, anything else, or was coaching like the dream?
It wasn't like the dream, but it was something that I'd wanted to do it a lot for like my first like 3 years of commentary. I'd wanted to try my hand at coaching. And obviously as the years went on, it kind of just like drifted out of my mind as a viable option. And I mean, honestly, I probably wouldn't have done it for any team other than Liquid. So when that opportunity came along, like I had good respect for the organization, the people in the organization. I had a lot of respect for the players and obviously the team, and I thought the world of what their potential could be. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to go do it when the opportunity came up. But yeah, there's certainly an element of at the time, a lot of things colliding all at the same time and coming together. Yeah, a little bit of frustration and boredom with what I felt were broadcasts that weren't actually trying to change and adapt. The COVID situation, taking, the job of commentating at events and being around all of our people and being in the arenas with all the fans being gone. There was a lot of just frustration and boredom in general of doing the online shows again with huge delays and the struggles that came there. But I also saw it as like, at the time I want to do this. And also like, if I'm going to do it, like, why not do it during COVID, where I kind of get, there's a bit of freedom in terms of the slow start. Like I'm not having to try and pick things up and not trying to navigate this new job and career, while standing behind them on a stage in front of 15,000 people, like I get to like, we're at home and we're in North America, we're doing North American events, easier competition. And it felt like a good time to like kind of ease into things. I thought, especially with them, dropping Nitro and Grim coming in, I felt like, the team might be a little bit more receptive to something as if they were kind of like felt like they were in a transitional period with this kind of long-standing member going out. And I think the other big draw to it for me was because I had been further distance from the game itself and the player side of things, was that their issues when we talked before I took the job to the players and to management. The opinion that everyone kind of had at the time was that the problems were not necessarily game related. So I felt like with my experience of being a commentator and communicating ideas and dealing with the egos on a broadcast and everything, I would be able to be effective stepping into the team and help them address some of those issues that were plaguing them outside the game as well, which obviously didn't work out as perfectly as we had all envisioned it. But no, I mean, there was some frustration certainly, but I wanted to coach when that opportunity came up.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels as well though like it's a huge first coaching job. Yeah. I mean, this was the other point I made to Yanko. I'm like, you're going to teams where if you succeed, people go, well, of course he's succeeding. Look at the team. But if they fail, everyone's going to be like, well, you suck as a coach. So it's like even getting them when they were on a downturn. Yeah. So there's a high chance that you are able to lift them up. It just feels like a poisoned chalice. It feels like you're not going to get any credit if you succeed.
but I think that's a talking point for you and Duncan and people on a desk and people doing talk shows and me as a commentator, but that didn't factor into my head at all when I was making the decision. I honestly, I didn't really care who would have gotten credit if we had succeeded. I like it. It didn't bother me. I wanted to take the NA team that had been up there for so long and fallen short and always kind of fallen at that last hurdle and be able to get them over the line, because I wanted to see the best NA team of all time win a major. And I wanted to see, someone like ELeague, who's one of the best NA players of all time, win a major. And I wanted to see Keith get one, and I wanted to see Jake get another one. So the idea that kind of like, who is, you won't get the credit if you succeed, but you'll get all the hate if you lose. Yeah, that didn't really factor into my head when I made the decision, to be honest with you. I wasn't even thinking about that.
And so, I mean, how do you even get into Team Liquid? I mean, like, because, I think it was pretty clear Adrian, was out, I think the players had lost confidence in him, which seems to be, if you're a coach, that's how you live or die, which is insane. Yeah. But so he was out. So, I mean, what do you do? Do you pick up the phone? Like, who do you call? How do you put yourself in the frame for that job?
It's actually, I guess it's kind of a funny story. When I initially talked to them, let me think of how to phrase this. I called them because I mean, obviously when we're at events, you kind of hear some of the stories about what's going on in teams and some of the struggles that were happening. And I'd heard plenty of stories over the year of some of the struggles and adversity that Liquid went through as a team in their various lineups. And I actually called Liquid to recommend somebody else for the job.
Right.
I called them and I said, "Look, this guy's
classic Moses, cock blocking himself." Always.
I know. I called them and I was like, "Look, I've heard from some people that these are the issues you're dealing with, and I know some of the players have wanted." This kind of an angle to a coach and everything, blah, blah, blah. You should really talk to this guy. Like, he's great. He's done good work.
Can you say who the guy is?
I probably could. I don't want to, though.
Okay, no worries.
Just because I don't know. I don't think it would be anything bad, but I don't know if he'd want it. I don't know if Liquid would want it. I don't know. But I just essentially recommended someone else, and I think they ended up having a conversation with them, and then maybe later on in the week they kind of called me back and said, "Here's this idea. What about you?" And I was pretty surprised, to be honest with you. I was pretty taken back. And then, I spent like a week kind of thinking about it and going back and forth and weighing some pros and cons, and really trying to kind of find out if I actually wanted to do it. And then at the end of the week, I accepted, and then we kind of just kept moving forward from there.
And so, you get in there, and what's it like right at the start? Because I know that there's two ways to play it as a coach. Remember, even I've been a coach before.
Source doesn't count, Richard.
Yeah, I know everyone says that, but whatever. I'm
hang on to that one.
I'm gonna hang on to it. It was for a very brief period of time, and
we got something in common.
Yeah. Although my team imploded. It was not me.
Shit.
So yeah, I didn't create. I could have still been coaching now if the team had stayed together.
You'd be the most experienced one out there.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so I've done it right, and there's two ways to play it, in my opinion. When you're starting out, first is to kind of come in and just hover and see what the habits are, and who's doing what, and how people are around each other, or like Brendan Rodgers, when he got the Liverpool job, you turn up with a fucking massive dossier. Yeah, I've analysed your last 5,000 demos, and these are the tendencies, and these are the plans, and this is our new style of play, and we're going to do, so which one were you?
I hovered first. I kind of, sat back and I kind of observed the way they were doing things. where they were practicing and kind of what kind of a schedule they wanted, and just kind of gathered some of that information. I mean, this all came together pretty quick, and it came together when I was still doing events. So yeah, I flew out to LA to do some shoot or to do something with Intel, and then I mean I just happened to have agreed to do it like 3 days prior, and I was like, hey, I'm in LA. If you guys got a photographer at the LA office, and if you need me to, if you want to do any pictures for media for the announcement or anything like that, and we slapped it together, and it was all pretty much kind of stepped in like two weeks after really accepting it. So it was pretty fast. I hovered. They were in the middle of a DreamHack Open event when I started coaching, so I didn't want to mess with anything while an event was going on. So kind of spent 4 or 5 days like they played out that event and everything like that, and mostly just being a cheerleader, and then maybe hovered for like a week or two of practice before really kind of stepping in and trying to get things done. And I mean, it was picking up a lot though too. It was like, not only that, but also like figuring out, how the different regions like North America find scrims, like getting involved in the scrim rooms, making sure I'm in contact with all that kind of stuff, trying to set up a schedule and a calendar, and getting used to the schedule that Liquid was going to have upcoming, and making sure I was organized in that regard. So yeah, it was kind of like hovering and making sure I had everything, all the basics kind of figured out before I started getting my hands dirty with the team. So yeah.
Yeah, and so look, I'll move us forward a little bit. I've got your events that you attended in front of me as
oh shit, you came prepared for this one.
Yeah, well, I didn't know which way it was going to go. I didn't know how talkative you would be, because obviously you're in a hotel, on the other side of the world. So I didn't know. But anyway, so let me just make sure I've got the absolute correct start date. So what was go on, you can just tell me, what was your first event?
I think it was DreamHack Open. Must have been summer of last year.
Yeah, that's good. That's the one I'm on. So just in case, because I couldn't remember if you went, there was a summit just before it. I couldn't remember if you were part of that. Summit. Yeah, because you were at that summit, but yeah, I couldn't remember if you were there as a coach and just sticking yourself in front of the camera.
No, I was just there drinking beer and hanging out with Fifi.
Yeah, man. Oh God, it's happier times.
Simpler times.
So, your first foray, it's not terrible. You make it to the final.
Lose to Furia, I think. Right?
You lose to Furia. But I mean, you lose in, I would say, classic Liquid circumstances, because you were on the, threshold. You're on the precipice of victory. You have an overtime on Nuke, and you lose the overtime, and then lose the third map, the deciding map. But overall, I mean, I know Furia are essentially the only team to, that you're gonna realistically play there because of just how the groups were. I think you were in a group with Chaos, was like the only other real team. No disrespect to Triumph, guys.
Was EG in that one? I think EG might have been in that one. I don't remember.
No, EG weren't at that one. It was Chaos. Okay. was the other big cool. team in your group, and then Furia on the other side. So Furia, you were essentially on the collision course with Furia, and so when it happened, you nearly won, but you didn't. I think probably if we were to rewind the tape and we were talking about it, I think when we looked at the numbers from that week, I probably said something along the lines of, it's like disappointing they didn't win the whole tournament, but Furia are one of those teams, and early promise. And then you go into ESL 1 Cologne, the North American section, and then you run us up there as well in a series.
G in a best of 5.
Yep. In a series I'm sure many people remember. You had a nice, back and forth with EG. EG were a team at that point that could play Counter-Strike. Incredibly, yeah. Ancient history. So, you had a super close game there again. You lose a map in overtime, but it's back and forth. You're ping-ponging, and then you lose it on Dust 2, which, let's be real, with good teams, that's always a coin flip. And so you've had 2 events, 2 runners-up spots, but, so far, so good. It's, it's not terrible. So
yeah,
what are you thinking at that moment in time? Do you think, fucking hell, this coaching's easy? Well, win.
No, I knew he hadn't quite gotten into. I didn't think coaching was easy at that point at all. Never thought coaching was easy for just even a moment. Um, no, I was happy with it. I mean, obviously, I would have liked to have win them, but I mean, it was kind of, I was still in like my mode of like figuring out the best way to attack some of the problems, and I think those two events was like happy to have seen us get to the finals and have that level of success, but certainly could see some of the things creeping in that was causing them to kind of stumble in these situations. But also at the time, remember, like at the same time I joined, I think Grim joined like a week or two before me, maybe like a month before me. And I think he was still kind of getting situated with the team as well. And I think most of the focus was on trying to find ways to still kind of work with Grim and have the team kind of help him get up to date on all and everything. So it was very much, it didn't feel like we were kind of complete. Let's see, didn't really feel like we were, I don't know, ready to face a Furia team that was incredibly good at the time. Not the Furia that we have now. This Furia was extremely deadly, especially online, with the kind of chaotic alping that they like to do. That's
Yeah.
really effective online. Um, and EG at that time too was still playing pretty well. So it felt like between the addition of me, between the addition of Grim, and also obviously has to be said the departure of Nitro. I think there was still some moving pieces within the team that wasn't letting us get to that kind of level that'll allow us to beat one of those teams to take one of the trophies. So still, I just was like, this is fine, and remaining positive and just saying these are good results for a team with a brand new player, a rookie player, and a brand new coach, and let's just keep our heads high. I think that EG one as well was like a series, like a record-setting series for ELeague, in a loss, if I remember correctly. So I don't know. I mostly just focused on the positives. With coming in, I figured most of my issues, most of the things that I wanted to try and help overcome, were like mental and attitude and emotional issues. So especially at the start, I was trying to just remain extremely positive about pretty much everything.
Yeah. I think where I started to realize that there was going to be problems, and Moses was probably going to be in for a real tough time, is probably, I mean, so the Pro League was disappointing, which was after these two events, because you finished, I think, 4th overall there, which is crazy to think, because it was 100 Thieves that beat you. And that was their like last dance, essentially. They all knew that, the org was going to cut them. So I guess they wanted to go out strong, but best will in the world. I think Liquid should have been, beating them. And
yeah, that one hurt. That loss hurt. That was one that was pretty painful to me. Again, I tried to like keep it positive with the team. I don't really remember what I said, but I remember just being like really frustrated after that one. Yeah, that was a tough loss to deal with.
And then it was almost like a double header, was you did that silly, I mean, well, I think it's fucking silly, the Intel Extreme Masters Beijing North America. It's like, hang on, right, what's going on here, right? Because they really needed to change the naming conventions, because last time I checked, Beijing isn't in North America, but that's where you guys were playing. But that was the one where I was like, right, there is something fundamentally broken in this team, and I don't think Jason's going to be able to fix it, because you lost to Triumph, and had you not, I think you win that event, because EG got knocked out by Chaos. And so, it was the easiest, it was the free tournament, it was the easiest tournament you were going to get given.
Yeah, that one hurt too. That one was really painful.
Well, so tell me about pain, Jason. What do you mean when you say it hurt? Well, what happens? You've lost 2 tournaments that realistically you were favorites for. Certainly the Beijing one. How does that translate to the players, to you? Like, what's happening in that moment?
I mean, losing fucking sucks. Losing is like just generally just kind of hurts. And it's one of those things where, I mean, for days afterwards, it's like you kind of reanalyze everything that was kind of done in terms of practice leading up to it, and try and find ways and probably find areas where you fucked up where maybe you didn't fuck up, or if you find mistakes that you might not have made in the moment, but like you just, you look at everything and you kind of just reanalyze all of it, and there's no real relief from it. When you lose on a team like that. So especially the one to Triumph, which felt like we shouldn't have lost at all. And I'll be honest, I don't exactly fully remember that game or what kind of happened in it that caused us to lose.
Better off out your head.
Yeah, I think I've just deleted it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was also a very part of a lot of the issues I had when I was coaching that prevented me from ever feeling fully comfortable was not even necessarily always like the team stuff. It was well, I mean, team stuff, but like a lot of stuff going on outside of the game, which is obviously under my purview as well. But I'm trying to think of what date. Do you have the dates for that event right in front of you?
Yeah, I can get them. Let me see. Yeah, so the Beijing one was November 2020.
Okay. Yeah. So that was like, well, I think it was like 3 weeks. I think I started coaching mid-August, and I think early September was like the first time I got a phone call from a player that was like really like struggling, and yeah, just caused some, was having a bad time, and the team was having a bad time with COVID, had a lot of issues outside the game as well. And I think those kind of leaked around in my head a little bit that made things difficult. It was also, I think, around that time is when we were kind of organizing all the travel for the European events. And it was about that time that all the TOs essentially came to us and said, we're shutting down everything in North America. Like, we're not going to be doing any online tournaments even in North America. So if you want to play in our events, you have to be in Europe, which caused some craziness. But certainly that match was one where I was a little bit blown away. I was a little bit shocked as well that we would fall so far to lose to Triumph, to be quite honest with you. I was a little bit surprised. Like, we felt really good going into it. I think we obviously had some decent practice, and it was kind of a shock, at least to me. I would hope to the players as well, that it was like, we can actually slip this far, even in our own region, even in North America. So yeah, that was like a pretty humbling realization right before we took off to Europe, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, so look, let's just shelve talking about events for a moment. Let's talk about some of the internal teams, and then we'll come back to events. So, I mean, obviously, Grim had just joined. And one of the things, because I've interviewed Twistzz and I've interviewed ELeague, and I talked to Stewie anyway, and I interviewed him at the RMR, and I interviewed Fallen. So I think actually you're the fucking last Dragon
The last
Ball.
piece.
Yeah, essentially to fucking figure out everything that went on in my mind. Obviously, I won't spoil it for everybody. But like I am curious, because the one recurring thing that came up from the legacy players was that they never felt Nitro got replaced. Like, they all missed him, they all wanted him back. They were all doing the Wolverine meme. And they all say that, like, it wasn't just that they lost something in the team in terms of like leadership, and that he was the level-headed guy. They felt that, like, it was just genuinely fucking sad. They were like legitimately emotionally affected by it.
Yeah, so that was Mike, can you still hear me all right? Someone my headphones just got unplugged. Okay, cool.
It's all good. I got you, buddy.
That was one of the ones where that Nitro thing is something that I didn't expect that popped up. Not because it was any kind of disaster not having him there, although I would come to learn as we went along, in various conversations with the different players, that it wasn't necessarily like Nitro was obviously great in game and did a lot of good things for them, but he was more like the guy who kept the team united, like outside the server. Like, the Nitro was like he was like the one friend that every group has, that like everyone kind of like gravitates around, like that, when you hang out as a group, that guy is always there. Like, you never hang out as a group when he's not there. And everyone on some level was friends and respected and liked Nick. I think it was probably the one that Russell was closest to on the team. I think him and John obviously had a huge history together from being teammates for however long it was, when like 6-7 years. Jake liked him, Keith liked him. So when he left, like that unifying glue player for the social aspect of the team was kind of gone. And I think that had more of an impact than the players, I think, realized at the time. And obviously, I wasn't part of any of the conversations about him leaving or anything like that. So I don't know how all those conversations went, or those ideas. But it was obvious that they were missing that, like, the glue guy. They were missing like the guy who kept like the team cohesion outside of the server.
Yeah. You know, and look, there was a tough one, because again, I think if you go back at the time as a pundit, I'm saying, you know, these performances were unacceptable. I mean, he had some real shocking performances, and it was at a time when, you know, again, the it's just too important. If you're an AWPer, you're in that mad world where a bad game, it can be the deciding factor in a series. Like a bad fucking round, frankly, can be the deciding factor in a series when you're on the
and that was always a big issue, because remember at the time too, we didn't have Fallen yet. Russ was still on the team, so Keith was opping, was the main opper, and Jake would pick it up from time to time. But you still did have, like, you have a new player coming in, so you're probably kind of a little uncomfortable in certain scenarios with Grim, as you kind of build up some protocols and plans with him, and some cohesion and chemistry with him. And you also have Keith as an opper, who's I actually thought Keith did an admirable job of opping, but I think he misses some of those qualities that oppers generally have. He's not like the most initiative taking person in the world. You know, he wasn't really the opper that was going to be like, I'm going to go get a fucking pick here. I really like to take this angle. And so yeah, there was a lot of moving parts that I mean, when Nick leaves, you're all of a sudden saying, okay, Keith has to take over his opping roles and Jake has to take over his in-game leading roles. So there was a lot of new stuff in the team at the time, and a lot of figuring out how all those pieces were gonna work together the best. And you know, sometimes it worked, and there were some ups and downs, especially in the early going, as you can see from those results. But a lot of obstacles that the players were working hard to get through. But on some level, you know, to a certain degree, especially if you look at the opping one, like, you can't really solve that issue necessarily unless you're saying, Keith, you're going to be our full-time opper, unless it's like, okay, get to work. You're now the opper for the foreseeable future. And that wasn't, you know, I didn't think that was the proper route to go. I don't think the players did either. So yeah, there were some unique obstacles from that departure of Nick.
So the other question I wanted to ask you was about Grim. Obviously, another thing I picked up on, which I thought was very odd, because we're all at home watching the games, and we're all watching Grim pop off and do like really good things. And everyone, you know, Harry's in the game. Oh, Grimothy, you're making me moist, and all of this. We're all loving it. And when I interviewed Stewie at the RMR, he sort of said something. I was like, hey, what? He said, you know, Grim, he makes a lot of mistakes, and, you know, it was something like that. And it was like, wasn't very positive considering they just won, you know. And then when I interviewed ELeague for the podcast, he talked about how he didn't feel like Grim was, you know, that he was having to focus a lot on his development, and that, you know, there was still a lot of work to do. And so, you know, my thought process is actually that they haven't really been all that pleased with him as a team, either a teammate or a team member, or how he plays. And obviously, to most people, that would seem really strange. So, you know, you were the coach at that time. Did you have any issues with this development?
No, but I also, you know, I knew it would take time to get him up to par in terms of like the different things that the players wanted to run and the protocols and reactions. Liquid plays a very, very detail oriented game where there's like a specific reaction to a bunch of different things. So for Grim, you know, it was hard to kind of play catch up to that, especially considering he hadn't been in teams that kind of operate at that level of detail, which I think is where some of the frustration came in with the more experienced players. And also, I mean, you have to remember too, like it's team at the time, I think a lot of them were still very much like in the mindset of get back to like Grand Slam mode like immediately. Like they wanted to be there. You know, they thought that they weren't that far away. And I think that kind of context makes it frustrating for a new player. I was certainly very pleased with Grim in terms of what he was doing in the server and delivering in terms of fragging. And I liked having a young guy who literally just wanted to frag. Like that was his focus, was killing the things that came up on his screen. And you know, I think the frustration came from not reacting to situations, you know, with utility properly. I think my only frustration with Mike as a player when I was there was he was quiet. He didn't communicate enough for what, like, you know, which is also natural when you step into a team that has the players that Liquid had at the time. And when you step into a team as an inexperienced player, my big thing was just reminding him at all times to be communicating and to be talking and to over talk. And I think one of the first things I kind of said to him was like, I'd rather you make like a million mistakes now and like I'd rather you not I'd rather you not make decisions because you're scared to make a mistake. I want you to make mistakes. I want you to just kind of play your game how you want to play it. Just make sure you're communicating. And if you make mistakes, we'll talk about them and we'll fix them after the fact, but don't be afraid to make those mistakes. But you know, certainly I think that the players saw more mistakes than I did, just because they, you know, they're you know, expecting like a smoke at a certain point or a certain reaction to a different situation. And I think that was kind of what hurt Grim in their minds at the time. But I mean, you know, I think if you look around the esports scene and Counter-Strike and professional Counter-Strike, there's a lot of new players that take quite some time to kind of ramp up and get, like, how long did Perfecto take in Navi?
Yeah.
Remember when he joined and people were just like, what the fuck? Like, why this guy?
Yeah.
And now we're looking at him now. We just
Defecto.
watched the game from against FaZe, and he had like 3 1v3 clutches. And you know, it takes time to get acclimated into a new team, and it takes time to kind of realize your full potential. And I mean, my kind of thing to the guys at the time was like, we need to just take it easy on him. Like, everyone chill out a little bit more. You know, being hard on him isn't going to help. You know, pointing out his mistakes in the moment is not going to help. So in practices, like, make your notes, send them to me afterwards. I'm watching him as well. I'm taking notes and marking down rounds that I want to review with him. And, you know, just make sure that he's, you know, feels part of the team and like he's not always getting ragged on. So, yeah, that was my big focus with Mike early on. And it was very much kind of, just let him play and make his mistakes, and we're just going to fix him as time goes on.
So 2020 ends with another, I don't want to call it a drama, you know, maybe that's downplaying it a little bit, but it was like, you know, it was a situation that I think I had a sense when it comes to Team Liquid roster moves. I do have a fucking spider sense, mate. I don't know how I do it, because you should have that, right? You're Moses, the bald eagle, lover of NA. Me, I don't know. Team Liquid, it's just, I always, whenever I call a roster move, it always seems to be right. And seriously, the Twistzz one was weird because I had no particular insight. Nobody had said anything. It was just, I sensed there was something up, and it felt like he was going to leave. And then you have the Intel Extreme Masters Global Challenge right at the end of the year in December. And you guys made it to the final. Very respectable. It was a really strong field. You got 3-0'd by Astralis, but I think runners up there is still pretty good, all things considered. And then immediately after, Twistzz does an interview and goes, I just want to say to everybody, I'm out. It's my last game for Liquid. And it was like, the motherfucker couldn't wait to get out. And when I sat down and talked to him about it, he said, like, man, you have no idea how, like, you know, there was so many things going on behind the scenes. I told him I needed to take some time off to get my head right. And they brought Fallen in. I turned up at practice and he was there. And I was like, well, I might be ready to come back. And they were like, oh, yeah, take your time. And he just got this vibe that, you know, he wasn't wanted anymore.
Well, so I just alluded to it earlier when I said that there was a player that called 3 weeks into my coaching and said he was struggling and wanted some time.
It makes sense. It had to be him or Grim. I would have guessed.
And you know, I just told him at the time, and that was, I think he came back right before IEM Beijing, because then immediately after that we had to fly out to Europe for like 5 weeks or 4 weeks or something like that. And yeah, when he had that call, I was, still very early on, and I was just like, if I'm not going to argue with you if you're telling me that you need some time and you need to get your head right and you have all these different ideas and you need some time to alone to yourself, or whatever you need to take a couple weeks off and figure things out. That's fine with me. But I just told him straight up at the time. I said, we're still going to be practicing while you're gone. And I just want to warn you, like, this isn't like a threat or anything, but um, we're probably gonna play with some oppers to see what it's like to actually play with an opper, with a typical opper, and see how things go, and get that sense within the team. And that's who I'm going to look at replacing you for practice. And just as a heads up, like, this is going to be probably hard and frustrating for some of your teammates who you get to take a break and they still have to work. And I was like, just make sure when you come back you're ready to go. But there's a world in which you come back and everyone really enjoys playing with someone, or really enjoys having an opera, or really enjoys this person that we play with for a week. And that's going to be something that if you want to do this, that's going to be something you have to deal with when you get back. And that's just the way it's going to be. And to his credit, he said, "Yep, I understand. That's not I get it, not a big deal." And yeah, he went on, he did like 2 weeks off or something like that. And we practiced with Fallen. I think we practiced with Gratisfaction. I think I talked to OC briefly. But the practices with Fallen were phenomenal that week. And the decision wasn't made at that point. But it certainly started us down the path,
Yeah, and I think as well, I've said this many times, so I never, I try not to be two-faced when I do interviews with players or whatever. If I've said something about them like, "Yo, you played like shit," I don't like, "Oh, you were amazing," and that's, I'm not gonna, I'm not there to do that. Plus, they can just go check, and then they think I'm an even bigger arsehole than what I actually am. So I talked to him about it, and I think he said as well, that there was a number of issues, like just in general in the team, and sort of he was moving in that direction as well. And I think that you could see an appreciable shift, because I've said I've never seen a more emo team than when these guys are playing, in that despondent moment where you're having a run of not doing particularly well at tournaments. And obviously, like you can see Stewie's looking pissed off. And when Stewie's pissed off, he goes to pieces on the server. He starts doing silly things. And ELeague's always pissed off, isn't he? And then you've got Twistzz. He looked emo as fuck. I can't get a read on NAF because, yeah, exactly. You're probably not supposed to. So, you have all this like, and Grim's a young guy with a 40-year-old man's head. So it's like, how do you read any of this? So, but the bottom line is no one was smiling, right? So
yeah,
I was like, there's problems there. I mean, reading body language, which you should never do.
it's not an exact science.
No, it definitely isn't.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think Russ had some unique problems in the team, and I don't want to touch on those because I don't know. I don't know the full story of all of them. I've just kind of heard bits and pieces over the years myself. But certainly he had a lot of things going on in, outside the game as well, where it felt like all of them were kind of leading him towards not being on the team, and towards leaving the team. And I don't know, that was a hard decision for him to make, I know. I mean, we didn't even really make a decision until I think like right before that whatever it was, that event started, the one where we played Astralis in the finals. And I mean, from there, the kind of messaging changed entirely for the team. It was very much like, look, Russ is gone after this event, and you guys have been teammates. He joined the team in 2017. It's been almost 4 years now. So whatever shit everyone's got going on, like, the priority now is making sure that we get to send Russ off on a positive note. Like, let's not get eliminated early. Let's not drop the ball in some stupid match in the group stage or the quarterfinals, or let's go deep, and let's make sure Russ is out of here on a positive note. And
you should have got to play it a leave every week, Jason, to motivate the troops.
I know, just start firing people. Yeah, so that was kind of the whole kind of theme of that event for us, which obviously turned out well. It was obviously a little bit of like a, what's the opposite of a honeymoon period, like a dead team walking kind of situation where you kind of forget and stop trying to fix and stop trying to work on problems, and you just kind of play the game with the guy that you've been playing with for a while. And we had a good run there, and I was very happy. I was very happy personally to, on one level, to get that good run for Russell going out in the finals. I was very sad on some level because I know, for me, in terms of coaching, I considered Russ leaving the team kind of my first failure,
Mhm.
because that was one of my goals when I joined. Was like, I even told Russ, like, right when I had like my initial call with him, I was like, man, you're getting you back on track is one of my top priorities. Um, and I didn't accomplish it. I didn't get it done. So that was disappointing, for me in a number of ways. But and then the interview afterwards that he gave, it wasn't any kind of sense of like him being like, good, let me get the hell out of here. I think from it, I think it was probably harder for him, I think, to leave the Liquid organization. I think he really, really loved the Liquid organization. And I think that meant a lot. I know he came in and came up to me after the game, and he was like, "Hey, I'd like to do the post game interview." And when a player comes and asks to do the post game interview, I just looked at him. I was like, "What do you want to do? Like, why do you want to do this?" Like, I was like, "You're going to announce that you're leaving the team, aren't you?" And he was just like a little sheepish. Yeah, and we got it cleared, and Liquid management gave it the okay, and he came up, and I think that was something that he wanted to do and is meaningful for him. So we were like, yeah, go have it. He earned it. He had a great career with Team Liquid. Started his career,
Great
incredibly
rapport with the
skilled player.
fans as well.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I really, really like Russ.
Yeah, he's a good
Really,
kid. Good kid. I'll always make time for him. He's come a long way as well, and developmentally and everything. So
yeah, it is funny looking at his older pictures, isn't it? Or did you mean
well,
as a player?
I didn't. I'm not like creeping on him. No, what I meant was that in terms of his personality, because
Yeah,
back in the day, pre-Liquid, there was some. You could see him maybe fall in that trap like so many NA talents do with their little entourage, all gassing them up, and you get
yeah.
egos and they become arseholes. But actually, probably getting into Liquid was the best thing for him.
Yeah, no, Russ was great. And yeah, that one hurt. I really liked Russ. I liked him as a player a lot. I liked him as a person a lot. And yeah, that sucked. It was a hard conversation to let him know, and it was hard seeing him leave.
Oh, so did you have to do that?
Yeah, yeah,
Oof,
it was. Yeah,
that's tough, man.
yeah, it sucked. It was hard. But I mean, I think he understood, and I think there was, like I said, I think there was a lot of other reasons as well, um, outside of the game, that I think made sense for him to be the one to go. Um, and yeah, yeah, that's all I got there. Sorry,
It's all
I
right,
was gonna go
dude.
somewhere and then I
What? No,
lost it.
I realized as well that we spend so long talking about inane bullshit. Like this is going to be longer than I told you it was going to be.
Two part
So,
two part podcast. You're good, man.
well,
I'm sat in a
yeah,
hotel with nothing to do.
yeah, okay. Well, there's drinking and fucking probably I don't know like FaceTime sex with the girlfriend or whatever. So I do appreciate you going along with me. But so let's ask about Fallen. The big question about Fallen
Yeah.
coming in was, were you nervous about him coming in? Because the first thing I said, right, keep in mind, look, you haven't had a particularly
Yeah, I
great
saw what you said.
run. Yeah. So, to summarize, yeah, you hadn't had a great run. You hadn't won anything yet. Fallen comes in. He's a notorious guy, Two-Face Toledo, all of the memes. But also he's a legendary IGL. The idea that, our boy Momo is going to tell Fallen a thing or two about how to play is crazy. Plus, the original plan, it seemed, was he was going to come in and lead. So were you nervous? Because it felt like at that point you could have easily been pushed out, maybe even replaced with someone Fallen wanted to work with.
No, I actually wasn't nervous at all. Talked with Fallen a lot. Um, And I mean, I even told Fallen as well, like I wasn't brought in as a coach to kind of I even told all the guys before I even agreed to take the job. It was like, guys, I'm not if you want someone to come in and kind of mess with you guys tactically and change things up strategically, that's not me. Um, so I mean, I was in terms of strategy, I gave my opinions, and I point out areas where I thought that we were missing some good ideas on. But in terms of like tactically and strategically, I didn't try and change a whole lot. I wanted those guys to play the game that they wanted to play.
Mm.
The entire idea behind Fallen was, um, I brought him in because I needed the team has between Stewie and ELeague, tactically and strategically, they had phenomenal leadership in terms of those guys who are incredible students of the game, extremely smart with Counter Strike, in a lot of ways. And I think what they were missing, as you kind of alluded to, with like the always looking depressed on cameras and body languages, I think they needed they had all the strategic and tactical leadership, but they didn't have like that emotional leader inside of the server. Um, which I was trying to provide a little bit of, but like at the end of the day, you need a player to have that role as well, to be stepping up
Mm.
to the plate, in my mind at least. And that's mostly what I wanted Fallen for. I didn't even want him to in-game lead when he joined. I told him straight up, I was like, I just want you to op. I just want you to play your game and get your op back up and look into things individually. And Jake's still going to in-game lead. I want you to help him, because I think if you talk to anyone who's been on a team with Jake when he in-game leads,
They all say he's great.
he's an absolutely jaw-droppingly good in-game leader, when he's on. And I was actually very, very surprised and very amazed at how well of a job he did. But yeah, when like the atmosphere and the team is a little bit down, and when people are getting frustrated and tilted, there was no one on that team who took it upon themselves to kind of help pull the team up. And that's what I wanted out of Fallen. I wanted him to come in with that leadership, and I know he's an ultra positive person, and that to me was one of his biggest assets. And the opping was just kind of like, you don't even have to be a star opper. I just need you to like deliver and hit your like consistent shots. You hit the easy shots as they come to you.
Mm.
And you don't need to do anything crazy. So that was the idea behind Fallen. I want him to kind of help give Jake some pointers and help provide some support in terms of mid-round calling, and provide some ideas and support and ways that Jake could become a better in-game leader, and a more consistent in-game leader. Um, and yeah, that was kind of the idea when we brought Fallen in. I knew all the risks. I wasn't worried about any of the, as you put it, the two-faced Toledo stuff. I didn't really see any of that when I was there with him. Um,
Well, I
in the
mean, look,
team.
we'll never know how overplayed it is. Certainly I was less worried, but obviously
Yeah.
when we heard that you were out, the first thing Duncan said was, "Not long after Fallen joined," and he put his pieces together as he saw it. But yeah, I mean, I think any coach that has the coach in a team with a legendary in-game leader there, I think they have to really have the chops to be able to pipe up in those team meetings and everything else.
Yeah, that was certainly an area that I struggled in. And yeah, I mean, that Liquid is a big ask as a first coaching gig, and in some areas I do wish I'd had some other kind of experience in terms of leadership, in terms of management, in terms of coaching. Um, and yeah, things like that, I made a bunch of mistakes, and I got better as I went along. Some of these mistakes probably weren't too big of a deal, and some of them probably lingered and remained a deal long beyond me considering them after the fact. But I never had any issues with Fallen. Um, I think he was I think a lot of his struggles early on when he joined was obviously kind of getting back up to his like playing level. I think he'd been out of like competition for a while, so individually he had to kind of get up to par and kind of refresh some of his ideas in terms of how to move around the map, in terms of what angles to take, and what positions to play when your teammate's in a certain position. But other than that, he had the same kind of positive mentality, and we talked a few times at night after practices or after matches, and was very much like, we need to try and work on this. We need to try and change this. And And yeah, he was great when he hopped in, and he obviously gave a bit of a break over to Jake, who at a certain point, really wanted to kind of step down for a moment from in-game leading. He kind of hit a boiling point with it. And that was kind of the other plan B with Fallen coming in, was like, we have another option for an in-game leader. I have a real paranoia. I had a real paranoia in the team of being like, okay, if like Jake just like, say Jake quits, or like, hypothetically Jake quits, like who in-game leads in this team? And, I felt like we really needed to have like a backup in-game leader in some sense, and Fallen kind of provided that as well. So he hit a lot of the buttons that I think the team needed, outside of his, even outside of his gameplay itself.
So I did promise you we'd get back to events.
Great.
So here we are. We're getting to the end, Jason. The end days are
the inevitable end.
Yes. So the run before you got fired. I'm sorry, that's such an awful way of phrasing.
No, it is what it is.
I'm sorry, dude. It fucking
all good.
Sucks. I mean, look, we've all been fired from a job, right? I mean, like, just like,
Yeah,
it must have happened to me. It must have. So
I'm sure you got fired from a job. There's got to be someone out there who just could not fucking stand being in the room with you anymore.
Yeah, that's what got me fired, not the other stuff. Me just being an insufferable brat. No, I mean, I must have been fired for something at some point. It's just obviously.
No, I mean, look. What I we'll get to it too, but I mean, that's what it is. Like, that's wasn't like an angry firing, but it is very much you're fired type situation.
Here you go. This will make you feel better. I have been violently and aggressively evicted.
Oh,
so there you go. Beat that.
Nice.
I never told this story, right? Might not even have told you, but like a few of the boys from back in the day know. So basically, when I was at university, I was a bit of a fucking crazy guy, And so one night we all got wrecked on, acid. And I had an indoor fireworks display in my house using outdoor fireworks.
Yeah.
Right. So it started
on acid.
It started innocently enough, doing the old, what I call the old, you snap a stick of a rocket and call it chicken flapper or something. I don't know, whatever the fuck. Yeah, probably not what they're called at all. But anyway, so we had them popping off and screaming like,
Is the bottle rockets, you mean?
Yeah, those things. But
okay,
yeah. But anyway, so we're fucking popping them all around the living room, and then I came up with the idea of this Roman candle will be fucking great and big.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
And so I put it on the carpet, right, straight on the carpet. Right, because I'm thinking the fire's going to go up out the top, not realizing that, it does, and then it comes down onto
something else has to go the other direction.
Yeah, on your carpet. Scorched the fuck out of the carpet, and the smoke all in. The smoke alarms start going off. They won't stop when we're pressing the buttons, so we rip them out, and then because that was just the only way to fix that problem. And then there's some small fires breaking out around the living room, just small ones.
Christ in heaven. So
I go into the kitchen and I get the fire extinguisher, which is one of those ones that just spit out like the crystals. So it's like not foam, like the carbon gas or whatever the fuck it is. So I do that. So now my living room is full of something that literally sucks oxygen out of the room, and these silver gray metallic particles. No one can breathe in the room. And it's a fucking mess. And I said, boys, like, I can't do a trip on like here now. We'll fix it in the morning.
Yeah.
But let's go somewhere else and trip out. So we do. Anyway, we crash, go to bed, and I am woke up to the sound of screams. And what's happened is my landlord has let themselves in after looking through the window and seeing partial fragments of burnt debris in the living room.
Fire alarms are ripped
which,
out of
by
the
the way, was a violation of their contract. So they were the arseholes, Jason. I want that on record. And they came in and basically they were screaming about, like, because I think they thought maybe the place had been raided, and I came down the stairs
Oh my
hungover
Lord.
as fuck post
Yeah,
acid
naturally.
trip, and just got told get out, not get out in a few days, not get
Yeah.
out. Yeah, it was get out. It was get your stuff and get the fuck out my house. So there you go, Jason. You know,
All right. That makes me feel better.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. See, being fired by an esports org's nothing.
Yeah.
In
Well, it
retrospect.
definitely wasn't violently evicted.
There you
That's
go.
true.
So look, these last three events, the run before you were not violently fired, were bad because you had another DreamHack where basically it's Team Liquid and a bunch of bums by this point, and for some reason you couldn't win it because you lost to Pain Gaming, and that was a womp womp. Then you went to ESL Pro League, and this isn't your fault because this format was dog shit. You did well in the group stage, and then I don't know, for some reason it doesn't matter that you finished second in the group. You're in a position where I think you got potentially the hardest game because you had to play G2, and if you lost that, yeah, fuck you, you're out. But it was 9-12. That's what it'll say on the history books. But that format was garbage.
I think we also got second place by 2 overtime losses to Astralis as well in the group stage.
Yeah,
that sucked. Yeah, that wasn't fun.
That's true.
What happened after that? That next one was a Blast, right?
Yes, and this is April 2021. You go in a Blast. It's the spring showdown. No worries here. This is good. I said it to Duncan. I said, well, it's good news for Lil Momo because he's taking on Dignitas. So there's a freebie. And they can have a run here, I said. And of course you didn't just lose to Dignitas. You got battered because they destroyed you on Nuke 16-5. And I was like, oh dear, this is it now. The team's given up, or they want Moses out, or there's something fucking going on, because it was so, even the relatively poor Liquid we'd seen, that was one of the most shocking results I think I'd seen with your tenure. So let's just talk about that run and how bad it was. What's going on in the team at the time? What's happening to you? Are you under any pressure? Are you getting the phone calls? Jason, you're really going to have to make them play, or you're going to get fired. Sorry, that's just the business we're in. Was there anything like that going on?
No, I wasn't. There was no warning calls or anything. Not I didn't expect them. But I think I don't know. At the time, it was a lot of. I think it was a lot of there was a lot of back and forth and trying to figure things out in terms of Fallen calling and how he wanted to call and how he thought the game should be played. And obviously we know a little bit more freewheeling Brazilian style that he's used to playing, and very loose responsibilities compared to the more detailed and structured oriented that Liquid guys had been playing and liked to play. So there was a little bit of back and forth there, which I thought was actually pretty healthy. I wanted to see the two ideas kind of pull the other one out of their comfort zone a little bit, so we could find a way to mesh them together, but it obviously wasn't working out that picture perfect. And yeah, I would assume at this time that the players were starting to lose a little bit of confidence in me and what I could do. And I'll be frank, at the time I was starting to lose confidence in my ability to do it as well. I felt like I had a lot of good ideas and ideas that would work, but I wasn't able to find ways to get the players to buy into it. And at a certain level, I can have all the best ideas in the world, but if I can't get the players united behind them, that's the coach's job. And was really struggling in that regard. So that was a rough period. The Dignitas one was a weird loss as well. I think after the Dignitas loss, I kind of knew that I had lost the trust of the players and the confidence of the players, just because there were some issues that went on in that match in terms of we had to restart the match once or twice. There was a couple things where the admins had to step in, and I just remember kind of trying to get the players to calm down and stop typing and stop talking to their team and just let the admins figure it out and give it up. And they weren't listening. So I mean, I kind of knew at that point that I had been like fallen outside of the graces of the players in that regard. But in terms of the gameplay, I mean, it was just, I mean, yeah, it was just like the Dignitas match was just a very flat game. We kind of watched it over, and I think especially on Nuke, we looked back and, on top of us playing flat, Dignitas was on a very, very good game. They were really on point individually and just kind of just walked all over us. The Pro League one was the real frustrating one, because we'd had a good group stage, and we'd beaten VP, who were playing really well at the time and were a little bit of a nemesis for us and were a little bit of like a grudge match for us. Because we thought they were a very good team. So we were happy to beat them, but yeah, I mean, just again, it kind of came down to some of the things that I wanted to change, because I felt like we were showing up to matches so inconsistently, starting out matches on like the right foot. So like the entire time I was coaching, I was trying to find different ways to approach how we would organize and structure match days, how we would organize the conversation about how we want to play against our opponent, how everyone wants to warm up and blah, 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 and trying to introduce some new things and get them to, and yeah, just kind of change the way we prepare for a match in a way that every single time we do it, we know what we're doing. We know when we're supposed to meet and talk. We know when we're supposed to warm up. We know, like, all the players can just be comfortable with the match day routine. And again, I could never get a routine down that it felt like everyone was happy and comfortable with. And still that kind of issue was just one I just couldn't figure out the entire time I was there. I don't know. It was very humbling. I felt like, I told you one of the things that I thought would be a strength coming into coaching would be the fact that I spent the previous 6 years communicating my thoughts and ideas and my view of Counter-Strike to an audience of millions of people for 6 years. And I honestly, in Liquid, felt like I had a real problem communicating my ideas, like ideas that things that I would either criticize that we chose to do during a match that I didn't think were like a huge deal became these massive ordeals at times, and ideas that I thought were like hugely important were just kind of like brushed aside at times, like players not thinking it was a huge idea. So I was very humbled by the fact that I went into this thinking that I had some very good communication skills, which I still do think I have. But for whatever reason, I couldn't get them across in the way that I wanted to with the players. I couldn't convey those ideas or the emotions behind them very well. So that was certainly a tough aspect of the coaching gig. But yeah, that stretch of events was pretty rough. I think that DreamHack one was weird too, because we did what? I think we did like 5 weeks at the end of 2020, went home for 2 weeks for Christmas, or 2 to 3 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, and then flew back out to Europe for 6 weeks, and then had to return for that DreamHack, because the way we kind of organized our schedule was like, we have to play this DreamHack so that we can miss a future event down the road, so that we don't have to be in Europe this long. And it was one of those events where I didn't really want to sign us up for that schedule, because it was like 6 weeks in Europe, fly home, you have like 2 days, and then we play this DreamHack, and then you have like 10 days, and then we have to go back for another like 4 or 5 weeks. So it was like not to make excuses, like we obviously should have done much better in the DreamHack Open, but it was one of those events that was kind of like signed up for just due to the nature of the schedule that we were confined to due to COVID. But yeah, so those 3 events happened, and I don't know. It was just, it was rough. And it kind of, I think all parties were starting to get the sense that while, I wasn't doing anything necessarily wrong, I wasn't the proper solution. And obviously, it was something that I knew as well, where, I'm coming into this trying to fix these like issues as a coach who's not super focused and super, tactically or strategic, mastermind. And if you're not able to get the team to buy behind some of the ideas outside of the game that you think are going to make them play better, then, you might as well find a tactical coach who can at least satisfy that side of things. And, if you want to take care of the other issues, go for it. But, if I wasn't getting the job done with things outside of the game, then yeah, it made sense. And, I'll never blame them for wanting to make that change. As I felt similarly that I was just struggling to have any kind of positive impact in the way that I would have liked.
When did you know you were out? Like, when did the penny drop? Like, was there any indication before the call comes in?
Yeah. Well, I mean, on some level, I knew the day before I left Europe after those events. You know, on some level, it was kind of like obvious in my head. I was like, well, that's it. It didn't end in a great way, which I think soured things. There was like one final meeting that I always kind of regret the way that meeting went. And I knew at the end of that I was done. I didn't get like the official call or word for like 2 to 3 weeks after that.
Did
I
you have one of the? Was it the snapping of the Momo?
No.
Oh, it wasn't you.
No.
Okay.
No, well, I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, it was just a meeting that like it could have gone good, it could have gone bad, it could have gone neutral, and it went bad. And I knew going into the meeting that a lot was going to hang on it, and when it was done, it just kind of, I could just tell.
Right. And then obviously you just get a phone call shortly after that?
Had a couple calls, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was a call, and it was like, this is kind of what we're thinking at the moment. This is the kind of what the players are thinking, and we'll keep you updated, but this is likely what's going to happen. And yeah, I said, okay, I understand. And yeah.
So is your prevailing sentiment that you failed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Easily.
So talk me through that. It's quite a tough realization to put on yourself. So
oh yeah, it took me a while. I mean, after that event, I mean, I pretty much disappeared from I think I went on after I got the call that it was going to happen. They hadn't really figured out the schedule of when they were going to announce things. I did like a road trip to see my girlfriend's family, and I fucking uninstalled Twitter, I uninstalled Instagram, I uninstalled Reddit. I just took it all off the phone and disconnected entirely. But yeah, it probably for like a month to 2 months afterwards, I was angry, I was mad, and I just disappeared from everything Counter-Strike. I didn't watch Counter-Strike for like 2 months, stayed off social media, didn't do any. I had a bunch of interview requests that I didn't even respond to, just because I could tell I was in a mind space where I was going to say something that I didn't want to say, just because I was angry. And I'm not going to lie, I spent some time after that and going through and blaming players for a lot, and blaming, I don't know, anything other than myself for a while, for like a month afterwards or so, and just spent time pissed off. And I just bought a house right before I started coaching. So when I got back, I just buried myself in housework and yard work and painting and tearing things out and tearing things down, and just generally just working out frustration. And that was good.
Like
but
a Marvel movie, isn't it? Right? Like
yeah. Yeah, it is.
You go away and just,
I feel like I needed
not
like
me anymore.
I feel like I needed like a Rocky montage, like throw some 80s music over it. I was demoing like bathrooms and shit in the house.
He does do that in Rocky 4, bro. What a fucking montage that is. Like,
but yeah, so that it took me a while to get to that realization, and I just spent a lot of time just being kind of pissed off and blaming other people, and mostly just kind of being a little bit embarrassed. And then eventually just you kind of slowly work through it. And then I just kind of, I don't know, started sitting down, and instead of being fucking pissed off at people and blaming other people, I just kind of looked at myself, and I just said, look, I failed. I think it was actually like my dad, I think one day came over, he'd given me like a grace period of like a month while I was doing all this housework. And he eventually just came over and said exactly what you said like 10 minutes ago. He's like, I've been fired from jobs. We've all been fired. And he essentially gave me this speech that was like, stop being a pussy. It's time to get back to work. He didn't say those words, but that was kind of like my read between the lines thing. And yeah, I don't know. I think the only way for me to have to get something out of the coaching experience with Liquid is just to accept the fact that I did fail, in a multitude of ways, and look at those failures and realize what I could have done differently, and what you can improve upon. And and what you can do differently the next time around. And I don't know. I mean, I failed. And then, yeah, there's certainly, they didn't make it easy on me, you know, like, there was certainly some real obstacles and some real problems. It was a tough team to go into, a tough scenario to go into, um, you know, tough external conditions with COVID. And, you know, I knew all those going into it. I knew there would be an obstacle. I don't think I fully appreciated I knew what a lot of the problems were. I didn't fully appreciate, I don't think, or underestimated how bad they would be, or how tough they would be to overcome. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's the only way I think to really look at it. You know, I don't think anyone, like, there was nothing like sinister from anyone, and no one kind of like sabotaged me, and no one was like outright mutiny or anything like that. I think everyone gave me an honest chance, and in this regard, I didn't really rise to the occasion. I think part of it, you know, there were some other things I didn't expect when I took the job. Like, for instance, I didn't really expect, I didn't really think about the aspect of, you know, for the previous 5 or 6 years, I've been traveling around the world with you and Duncan and Henry and Alex and Chad and Yanko and Matt and all these different people, and Trace and Anders and Semler. And I didn't really expect that, when I got to coaching, a lot of the things that I loved about Counter-Strike and had come to really enjoy about working in Counter-Strike were just no longer there. You know, I always felt like I could still reach out to those guys, but, you know, it is vastly different. And a lot of the things that made me still love Counter-Strike, you know, even though I'd been away from playing for a while, were no longer there. So there were some struggles in that regard as well. But yeah, overall, I think it was an experience that I think I would do it again, you know, not like I would go back into coaching, but I think if I could do the decision again, I would. But yeah, it does fucking suck to fail in that regard, and also fail publicly.
Oh yeah, it's brutal. I mean, what was the fan reaction like?
I don't know.
Because
I didn't have Twitter on my phone.
you literally didn't engage with that at all.
I uninstalled Twitter until I started. I think the next event that I came back to actually sit down and start watching Counter-Strike was the Blast finals.
Yeah.
Right before, because then after Blast finals, I casted the CIS RMR, and then I did Cologne from Poland here. So yeah, for like literally like 2 to 3 months after that last trip to the Netherlands with the team, I didn't get on Twitter at all. I had it uninstalled. So I mean, I didn't see any of the reaction. I didn't get any of the tweets. I didn't look at the Reddit threads. I didn't go on HLTV. I didn't do any of it. I just stayed away.
Probably for the best, as Henry will attest.
I think I must. Yeah, maybe. I don't know what his course of action was. I remember when
I used to send them to him. So
I should have messaged you. I sent
every
Steve,
hate thread about Henry. I'd go, Henry, have you seen this one? He'd be like, yeah, Richard, I'm trying not to look at those at the moment. I'm like, no, this one's fucking hilarious, bro. Like,
this one's good.
Yeah.
I remember when Joka Steve called me to tell me how everything was going to go down and when the announcement was. I was like, just do me a favor. I've everything deleted and uninstalled. I'm not plugged into the world at all. I was like, just make sure you like compile a list of all the like bald fraud jokes that are certainly going to come out on the internet. Just get me a list of the good ones. You can delete the ones that suck, but like find me like 5 or 6.
I was going to bring that up, right? So do you know that that's a comparison to a soccer coach called Pep, you know about Pep Guardiola, right?
Yeah. I don't know about him, but I saw where the bald fraud meme was essentially born.
Yeah.
I saw that clip or something.
Yeah. So basically how it works is, right, Pep Guardiola, he was a fantastic player and obviously got a managerial job at Barcelona just as they had like a golden generation come through. So he fucking won everything, you know, and did it playing beautiful football, the beautiful game. Now, everyone has always said that success was kind of like just given to him. But then he went to, you know, Bayern. He won a league in Germany. And then obviously moved to City and Bayern, by the way, best team in the German league, although I'm sure Dortmund fans will hate me for saying it. They're the ones that have had the most success in recent years. And so you sort of expected to win a title there, which he did. And then he goes to Man City, wealthiest club in the world, owned by an Emirati. And, you know, everyone was saying, well, he's not winning the Champions League, winning a Premier League's nothing. So he's got a trophy cabinet like you wouldn't fucking believe. One of the most successful managers of the modern era. And the joke is they call him the bald fraud because they somehow believe he's not actually a good coach. So you were literally being compared to one of the greatest soccer managers of all time.
Lovely. Excellent.
And being called a fraud.
I know. I hated that shit. I hate the bald fraud thing.
Oh, you really hate the bald fraud thing?
It's fine. I mean, look, I've dealt with plenty of fucking bald jokes over my career. I've had fucking hit in the face with pie twice. I've got thick enough skin, but yeah, it was just so prevalent. Mate,
surely you're immune to the bald thing now because I was there when Anders had that edible and we were watching X-Men Apocalypse, and every time fucking James McAvoy came on in the chair, all I could hear from the other end was Anders going, it was fucking ridiculous, mate. So surely
learning.
Yeah, oh man, that film so balls. Like, I can't believe I paid money to see
Oh no!
But you know, come on. But
I know
there's words.
I don't give a fuck about the ball. What pisses me off most about it is that it somehow still works. That like the ball jokes are the lowest hanging fruit in all of like comedic anything you can say on a desk, but they still fucking work. Like you can't respond to it, and there's no comeback for someone saying you're bald. It's like, well, yeah, great.
But then there's the you're bald and beautiful though. You know,
yeah.
You're some people are good-looking guys when they're bald. You haven't got a freakishly shaped head. You know, you carry it well.
Thanks, Rich. I've had a lot of people tell me I have a nicely shaped head. I don't know how to feel about it. It's weird. It's an odd compliment, though. You know,
seriously, when you die, your skull is gonna like. I would love to have a skull like yours.
A cast of my skull.
Not yours, because that would I would love to have a skull like yours, like maybe just in my study, you know, with like a candle on.
Yeah. Perfect. So I'm always with you. Yeah.
Perfect. No, again, not yours, just like yours. But yeah, if it was yours, that would be sad. That would not be. That wouldn't help me get over the grief. That would actually be the worst.
Just for a constant reminder. Yeah.
Right. I'm just getting over Moses's death. I'll just go into the study.
Just go get a nice whiskey. Oh, it's a skull.
It's all coming back. So look, let's start wrapping this up.
Okay.
You said there that you would do this experience again, but you sort of said not necessarily going into another coaching job. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you towards the end of the session was just, do you still believe you can be a good coach? And if so, would you be open to taking another coaching job if one presented itself?
I think I have it in me to be a good coach, but I don't think I would go into it again, simply because one of the things I started to try and do towards the end of Liquid was I'd spent a lot of time trying to have conversations and point out where people are handling situations incorrectly, or making sure we're trying to all stay positive and focus on the same goal and get people to have the necessary conversations and everything. And then towards the end, I realized maybe some of these problems are maybe I can attack it from two different fronts, right? Like maybe I can kind of help with some actual, get more involved on the strategic and Counter-Strike side of things and work it from both angles. Like make sure we're still preaching the positive mentality and healthy team environment, while maybe helping to solve some of these problems from that end as well can alleviate. And if you work it from both ends, maybe you meet in the middle and it just gets solved quicker. And I didn't fall in love with that side of the game as much as I used to have for it.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of coaching Counter-Strike, I'm just very far removed from actual gameplay, very far removed from player mentality and player experience, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think most teams probably could use a little bit of a diversion away from player mentality and that being the dominant environment within the team. But yeah, I think getting involved in Counter-Strike on that level of strategy and detail just isn't my thing anymore. I've moved on from it in a way. But I would like to be, I mean, I would be very interested in like some kind of like team management. I think like GM would be cool.
You can talk to Henry about that one. Yeah. Yeah.
He had a unique
GM would be
situation as well, didn't he?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
Me, Henry, and Yako really didn't do a good job of picking our projects. We went into some really
Well,
high.
I'm glad you brought that up. You're reading my mind. That was what I wanted to talk about. Do you feel that this is indicative of almost like a collective hubris among us broadcasters? Because, you know, look, not everybody can be an award-winning journalist and an incredible host that, you know, the first esports host on an American network TV show. Not everybody can climb to the top of two mountains, is what I'm trying to say. You know, so my worry has always been that when people get disenchanted with the thing they're good at, or they just get bored, or they're on cruise control, suddenly that challenge over there looks really good. But obviously it can be disastrous. And then if you go and do that, you might not get to come back to the thing that you love and you're really good at. We might end up deprived of some incredible moments for it, you know? And that was my worry, that if you went away, maybe we don't get you back on a broadcast. If Yanko goes away, you know, especially with all these players retiring, maybe there's no room for him as an analyst anymore, you know? Like, yeah. The kids are in, you know, Sponge has obviously now moved over to casting, but you know, if like everyone was loving Sponge when he came on a desk, and everyone's loving Maniac, so do you bring Yanko back? And then obviously with Henry, you know, Henry went and did it while he was at the top of his game. He just won like Caster of the Year at the Esports Awards, and then he's like, right, I'm off to be a GM. And seriously, that it's not fair, but the reputational hit he's taken, like the Cloud9 fans seem to hold him uniquely responsible for it, and that's a big fan base to piss off.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for them. I don't think it was like a hubris thing with me. I think it was just like an opportunity that presented itself. Like I didn't go chasing it. And I had full respect for how difficult it would be. You know, I'm very cognizant of what I perceive to be my own weaknesses, and I know there were some weaknesses. I have some weaknesses that job requires you to be on top of your game. So I knew there'd be some challenges. I knew it'd be an uphill battle, and I knew I was going into a team where I would be trying to solve and improve and fix problems that had been in that team for years. So I very much recognized that it wasn't going to be an easy task, and I very much understood from the get-go that there was a world and a chance in which I failed, even going into it. And, you know, I just accepted it and did everything I could to avoid it. Obviously not enough, and obviously maybe not in the right areas, but I don't know if, you know, it's one of those things where, I don't know. It's just like, it's one of those things where I feel like the only thing to take out of it now that I kind of have admitted to myself that it was kind of a failure is like, what can you learn from it, you know? And, you know, I think it was certainly a difficult thing for like my first management / leadership position. Maybe not the best idea, but I mean, again, like it was one of those things I didn't ever consider. I didn't consider coming back to broadcast when I went to go do that. It wasn't like, oh, if I fail, I can always come back to the show. You know, it was just focused on trying to succeed and trying not to fail. And especially I think when I did get fired and lose the job, I'll be honest, I thought, you know, the few broadcasts I'd watched throughout my time as coaching, I didn't think there'd be an issue with me getting back onto a broadcast. Well, let's just leave it at that.
I love it. It's the confidence of a supreme man.
But yeah, I don't know. I can't speak for the others, but yeah, I don't know. They're all tough projects. Like, you know, it was really nice when I got here in Katowice for this event and finally got to sit down and have a few drinks with Yanko. And we just talked for like an hour or two about our experiences coaching and just fucking laughing about some of the absurdity. And And I think the first thing when I was talking about Liquid and what I tried to do, and he just like told me straight up, he's like, I think you made some of the same exact mistakes that I made when I first stepped into MIBR. So that was, I guess, kind of a relief in a way. But mostly I was just kind of laughing and having a good
Well,
time.
I'm
about it.
hoping you're going to be up for recreating that, because for this Christmas, the thing that
Oh shit, we come back for a by the numbers Christmas edition again?
yeah, well, what I was thinking was what would be good is obviously me and Duncan and Sam, right? And we get you and Henry and Yanko, and we have the bald fraud special. Like, it's just literally a shit fest, free for all. Like, listen, the
So you're telling me you want to bring me onto a show to be the punching bag for you and Duncan?
No. I know things are worse when I get together with Duncan, because I sort of do encourage him and lean into it, and I'm terrible. I'm a terrible enabler for that, I realize. But equally, he is going to do it anyway. So I want to be on the winning side. You understand? And it will be him, because he will not stop until he wins. So it's just the way the cookie crumbles, I'm afraid. But yes, I don't even think you'll be the punching bag on that one, because when I think about the failure and how it's all relative and the way it's remembered in the community, and the person who definitely came out of it the worst in terms of the stress and everything else, it's unquestionably Henry. It's unquestionably Henry. Like, people literally think he had like some sort of blank checkbook and he just fucking pissed it all away. Like, or just, like fucking EMF or whatever they're called in the fucking late 80s, just setting $1 million on fire on camera for the banter. Like, people literally thought he was doing that, and still do. And Cloud9 fans believe he's the sole reason they're no longer in Counter-Strike. It's so,
yeah,
he will be the punching bag, I imagine, if he's willing to put up with it.
That was, yeah, I felt bad for Henry taking the brunt of that, although he did come up with a marketing plan that probably worked too well.
Yes,
it worked against him.
We literally said the same thing last time we talked. It's like, dude,
that's one of Henry's skills, right? Like, that's one of Henry's, like, he's a phenomenal promoter, and he's phenomenal at getting people excited and hyped. And it was one of his great skills as a commentator, and one of his great skills in content and on broadcast. And so, I mean, I loved it. I love that whole. I thought the whole Colossus thing was a bit overplayed with due to the fucking Juggernaut and all this X-Men shit. But like, he got everyone fucking hyped up. He got me hyped up to watch that. Sure. I just find it so curious how, like, I don't know why he gets the blame when it's like, why would an organization let him spend that kind of money if they're just going to pull the plug and back out entirely? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, no, I don't know the decisions of Cloud9, but like, if you're going to let someone spend that money, then you have to have made the decision, like, in a management position, to say, if we're going to spend, $1 million, like, we got to make sure that we're in this for like 2 years, like,
people were completely bypassing the usual route of blaming the coach as well. I mean, like, Kassad was out of there pretty early on. That never got talked about. Woxic wasn't really Woxic, and him going, was a big issue, because you're banking on him being your star AWPer, and what you're actually getting in games is just so far removed from what you thought you were buying. No one really talks about that. And then, they even had that mix guy in for a bit. No one let apportions any blame to him. It was literally like all the
he's the big name. He's the big name, the big face. Yeah. I don't know. It is one of the frustrating things about, I mean, I kind of, for me, I accepted it. And I obviously have already had experience, like, being in the public front and everything. But as a coach, like, the little I have seen in terms of like Reddit comments or tweets about some of my decisions as a coach, you just kind of, I don't know. I just kind of accept that it's frustrating on some level when you see someone form an opinion without all the information that you had to deal with or you had to work with at the time, and the situations going around at the time. I think people often forget, like, as a coach, you have your own life going on, and you have your own life and your own organization, but also like you're dealing with the lives of, you know, 5, 6 other people as well. Like you have all their external issues now become your issues. And it's very hard to know like what the right decision is at different times, because I never had a situation where there was like a black and white right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
I never felt that way, at least. It was always like, yeah, this is the right answer to fix this issue, but it's going to exacerbate this issue, and this issue behind me that's looming around the corner, who the fuck knows how it's going to affect that issue. We'll just cross that bridge when we get to it. And then you just kind of keep playing the cards as they lay. And you know, obviously you'd like to get out in front of some of those problems as much as possible, but it's just not always capable of doing it. So yeah, that was another like juggling act that I had to do. But yeah, I mean, it sucks when you get criticized for some things that you feel aren't your fault, but that's the job. That is the life of a coach. I'm sure I've been, as a casual fan, sitting and screaming at, you know, fucking Pistons coaches over the years, or Lions coaches over the years, and I don't know what the fuck they're going through, and I don't really care, and the average fan doesn't care what I'm going through either. And that's part of the game. That's
Yeah.
part of the fun of being in the sports environment. And it's just something that I accepted. Yeah, I mean, I still, like, I get some tweets now like criticizing the Fallen pickup and laying it at my feet, and yeah, that was, you know, a lot of that was my decision, and I pushed for it, and a lot of us pushed for it, and we liked how it went. And you know, I don't necessarily know if it's not panning out well, but I certainly think you know, it didn't go exactly the way I would have liked it to have gone.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think overall it was.
Do you consider it a failure?
Yeah, I mean, I've said so. I can't, but here's the thing. So, on a personal level, being friends, I mean, fuck no. Like, I wouldn't, like, I've said what you guys, because you're still all a little bit younger than me, you fucking Generation X or whatever you are, or is that me and you're a millennial?
I think I'm a millennial.
Yeah, I think I'm a Gen Xer or whatever.
I think I barely made millennial.
We had the better music and the better drugs, so fuck you. But regardless,
you did.
Regardless, you know, look, I can project into a future where we're all sat around with, you know, our families, and our, you know, we're all having barbecues, and, you know, we might not see each other all of the time because where we live geographically and lives sort of taking us away from esports, but we'll get together, you know, 1 or 2 times a year, and we'll talk about the good old days and all of this stuff, even the stuff that seems mega significant in the moment and really upsetting. We're gonna fucking laugh about it and almost kind of miss that, you know, ability to channel ourselves in that direction. And so, on a personal level, do I think it's a failure? Well, no, because you wanted to do something, you got to do it with the team you wanted to do it with, and you found out something about yourself that's probably made you assess yourself on a personal level, that ultimately, however you metabolize it, is going to help you moving forward, potentially make you a better person. So no, it's definitely not a failure in that regard. In the world of sports, it's an unquestionable failure if you're talking from the peanut gallery, because what was meant to happen was you were meant to go and take the fucking team that was already good and turn them into a Voltron and, you know, blast off into the future and, you know, bring a glorious era of NACS back. And you didn't do that, and that's what the fans wanted, and that's what the players wanted, and ultimately that's what you wanted. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's just the sports narrative. So yeah, you know, no one in a Team Liquid jersey is going to be buying you a beer in a bar anytime soon. But boo fucking who. But the bottom line is, I think, you know, maybe it wasn't the right first job for you, but if it was take the Team Liquid job or never coach, you have to take it. You have to. So, I mean, fuck it, man. Like, would have been nice to win at least one of those shitty little trophies, so you can at least say you got gold.
Have something in the office.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll ask for like a bronze medal or something from somewhere. Maybe DreamHack's got those like little plastic rings that they give out. Take one of them.
But you know, ultimately, for me, as I said, you know, I made the joke about me climbing Team Mountains. But you know, ultimately the reality is whatever happened with the coaching thing, you've been at the top of that thing. And nobody can question that, you know, when it comes to your broadcast work, it's imperious. You're one of an elite few across all of esports. So, I mean, you know, when you do eventually get out of this fucking crazy business, you know, you made it to the top, man. I mean, fuck it. Do you know how many people try? You know, got to be proud of it, but you don't get to win at everything. It wouldn't.
I know that's a real bitch, isn't it?
Yeah,
that part of life sucks.
But it's what keeps it so spicy and vibrant. So look, to wrap it up, what is the next plan? Because I know we talked a lot at the start about, you know, maybe you going into content creation or something along those lines. So I don't want to regurgitate that, but obviously you're back on the broadcast. You know, I won't call it a grind because we all love it. But yeah, you're back to doing regular broadcasts, and so I guess you got to be gunning for a spot at the major, right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as gunning goes, I don't, you know, I haven't had to really gun for anything in quite some time. I usually just get a message. So yeah, I'd love to be at the major. Obviously the next major, I think that's obviously gonna be like a really special one, first time back in 2 years. So of course I'd love to be there. But in terms of what's next, you know, I'm not really 100% sure at the moment. I'm doing a bunch of broadcasts to close out the year. I still want to keep doing broadcasts next year and forever, however long Counter-Strike is still around. Hopefully forever. I'd love to still be doing it when I'm 50. But I do want to get off of like the freelance travel grind is like my main goal. Is like, you know, find my next thing. I want to find something that makes me feel like I'm actually pushing esports / Counter-Strike forward in some kind of a role in a full-time position that also allows me to do events throughout the year. Just like I want to be able to like pick, you know, my 100 days that I'm gone a year. I no longer want to do the 250 to 300 days on the road every single year. I'd like to be able to say I'm going to do these 6 events across the year, whatever it might be. And then when I'm at home, I have my job to do, you know, whether it's, you know, behind the scenes, helping production and being involved in production and content creation on that level, whether it's being involved with a team on the back end and trying to have some kind of, you know, help build some kind of esports infrastructure and structure on their teams, being involved in that level. But you know, so I'm having some conversations now. Nothing's even close to being set in stone, and nothing's even close to being super promising. But yeah, I'd like to just find some way to do my Counter-Strike events, dedicate myself to like Blast or ESL events in their circuit, and then have a job on the side of it that I get to do when I'm home. So that's kind of my goal at the moment, and it's kind of like a have your cake and eat it too goal. It's like you get a full-time job and you get to just run around casting Counter-Strike, but that's what I'm gunning for, you know?
Well, look, man, you know, I've got a few irons in the fire. I'm making some big life decisions because obviously I
saw you uploaded a political video the other day. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh God, don't.
I feel like I've been privy to your political podcast 4 years ago before you even thought to make it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't talk about the politics. I talk about the coverage about the politics. And unfortunately, as you well know,
that's the best part about politics.
Yeah, the American media fucking sucks.
Oh yeah, we blow. We are really bad at that.
Yeah, and so obviously that's what I'm. Not that I mean, you know, Britain's probably the same, but I feel like the Americans, much like in a restaurant, they're the loudest, aren't they? So
yeah.
So, you know, anyway, so I'm doing that, but that's not what I'm going into. I mean, like, you know, there's some options to maybe get into a company with some friends and maybe, you know, do some different types of content. I'm on that content trail as well. Or a book. I might, you know, somebody offered.
Oh, you're gonna write the book?
Yeah, it's
in advance.
You know, yeah, somebody's interested in that. And then also I was talking to someone today about maybe moving into being a professor, getting a doctorate, and then
mold the young minds of the next generation.
But then lecturing in esports specifically. I've actually got some guest lectures. I do a lot of that. So I got some guest lectures coming up soon, which will be fun.
That's awesome.
So yeah, man. I mean, like we'll sit down and we'll talk nearer the time, because I get it, man. Like, we all crave new experiences. It's just obviously you're very good at being a caster and an analyst, and you even host as well. You're the Swiss Army knife of the broadcast world, and it's like,
do it all.
Yeah, you do it all. So you could do that till you're 50. It's just obviously when things are easy, because you've worked hard to make them easy, it does get a little bit boring. So yeah, we'll have a sit down. Maybe we'll make Room on Fire too.
Room on Fire Part 2.
Yeah, balls on fire, ass on fire. I don't know.
We all know what ROF means.
Yeah, me too, and I can't say. So look, it's, as always, it's a pleasure. And to everybody that was watching, please go and support Jason. He's a dear friend. He's helped me through a lot of shit. He's a really good human being, and he went through a lot of shit and got called a ball fraud, didn't he? So don't do that. Just
definitely don't do that.
Whatever.
The number one rule of the internet: tell people not to say something.
Yeah. Well, no, the thing is as well, like, we actually have a bald fraud emote on our Discord.
Yes,
yeah, that's
of course you do.
That's how it just
is it me?
like yeah, it's you. Look, listen, I'm such a good friend to you. The original one, because my moderators just run the Discord because I'm like that, right? It's got my name on it, but it's their thing as much as it is mine. They uploaded a picture and it was you with the pie on the face.
And you said, no, not in my house.
I said, listen, that Jason's only had 2 humiliating moments in his life: tenure at Team Liquid and getting that pie in his face.
That fucking pie.
So, like, you can't wreck him for both. You pick one or the other. And they chose to go with wrecking you for being a ball fraud in Team Liquid. So, there we have it. So,
great.
But it's a compromise.
Yeah. Like everything in life.
Yeah.
You can't have it all.
But anyway, as I was saying, in this lovely way to wrap it up, he's a great guy, fantastically talented, made a stellar contribution to Counter-Strike. I'm sure even the Team Liquid fans, they're a reasonable fan base, won't hold anything against him, and maybe listening to this has given them a fresh perspective. So follow him on Twitter, send him some love, leave a nice comment in YouTube. I'll take the best ones and send them to him to help rebuild his shattered ego. And there you have it. So listen, thanks to Jason for his time. He's been very generous with that. Thanks to you for watching. I don't know when the next episode of the Richard Lewis Show will be coming around or who the guest will be, but it'll be a banger. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe and all that Zoomer shit. And I'll see you on the next episode. Until then, take care.